Everybody. This is Superintendent Joe Core. I want to welcome you all to the third of our public forums, and actually the seventh public forum that we've had overall here in North County. And actually last evening, we had our pupil services and special education presentation. So we're going to continue. And right now we are scheduled to be on next Thursday night with another PAC meeting, because I'm sure that we will have more information to share with you. And as we all know, the situation in which we find ourselves right now is a situation that is rapidly changing. We want to make sure that everyone is updated with the most recent information and that everybody has a chance to become informed, to weigh in and have questions answered. So tonight, if we could, and I, again, like to mention here that our Parents Advisory Council is a group that has been active in North County for a long time. I'm in my 11th year as superintendent. We've had a PAC every year. It is a standing committee of volunteers, your neighbors and your friends who offer input to us as a school community on our school operations. For that, we are very grateful. We're also blessed with the fact that we have students on our Parents Advisory Council too. And I see Michaela up there, and Michaela has made every meeting so far. And thank you, Michaela, for your perseverance throughout the summer. And it's great to have you here. And you've had your student colleagues and student government with you throughout the summer as well. So why don't we go to our first slide here. Okay, as I said, this is the third of our mandated three, but our seventh community forum that we've had on this since July. Our note that our PAC has been meeting since the 4th of June, discussing mostly reopening issues. So why don't we go to our agenda for tonight? And first of all, before we get to, our agenda for tonight is, again, we're talking about the governor's announcement and his charge to us. We'll start with health and safety. We will go this time tonight, elementary K-3 to elementary 4-6, secondary 7 and 8, secondary 9-12, special areas K-12, K-12 orientations and transitions, K-12 remote options. We condensed it slightly tonight. And we will also have an opportunity for questions this evening, and we'll get to the process for individuals within our audience to submit questions. If we go to the next slide, that would be great. And so we will, and I'll leave the slide up for a minute here. At the end of the presentation, we will address questions that are submitted. And so you, our audience who is live streaming, can submit questions to the email address you see up there on the screen. That's https://bit.ly/2 capital Y lowercase I YPRI. And that was a test to see if I know uppercase, lowercase, alphabet, and one number, as well as other symbols as well. So take the time, get that down, and you can submit questions throughout the presentation. In addition, for questions that we cannot answer this evening, we will continue to update the page of frequently asked questions on our district website to archive our questions and answers. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so on Friday, August 7th, the governor gave every school district in every region in the state the opportunity to open schools. And basically, there were metrics that were previously established with regard to infection rates. And as a result of hitting those metrics, all schools in all regions were authorized to open. The governor also stated that infection rates will be continually monitored, and if there's a spike or any kind of a concerning metric in one of those regions, a reevaluation will occur. So next slide, please. So this is the update on the survey results at the end of the day yesterday. And so if you take a look at that, at the elementary level, we had 1,473 individuals elect in-person learning. That's about 75, almost 76% of those who have submitted thus far. 468 in remote, about 24%. At 7 and 8, 442 or 79% are electing in-person learning, and 117 are electing remote. That's about 21%. At 9-12, we have, that's a nice number, 1,000 who have elected in person. That's about 80.3%, 245 in remote, almost 20%. So our totals so far are in person 2,915. That's an in-person rate of 78.4%, and in remote 826. That's a remote rate of 21.58, rounded up 22%. The results have remained relatively constant. So let's go to the next slide. So we're going to take a look here at health and safety. And so Ms. Jenna Bongermino, who is our COVID-19 coordinator, and I will be presenting this section. So let's go to the first health and safety slide. And it's important to learn from those who have gone before us. And so what have we learned from other schools? And so Dr. Ranu Kaushal is the chair of the Department of Population of Health Sciences and Annette Laitman Distinguished Professor of Healthcare Policy and Research at Weill Cornell Medicine. Also the physician in chief of Population Health Sciences at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center. So infection rate is a big factor. And Ms. Skeels and I attended a webinar put on by Johns Hopkins, and that point, that was today, and that point was stressed again in that webinar, that the current infection rate is a major determining factor in whether or not you should go back and how you should go back to school. Let's go to the next slide. And so when we examine our current infection rates, we have the data here on the slide. Then this was a slide that was shared Tuesday. But the data shows that in New York State, we've been consistently under 1%. And I think we're on a multiple day run of maybe 10, 12 days. I'm not exactly certain on that. In Albany County on August 12th, we're at 1.1%. But then we dipped to 0.25, 0.37, 0.96, and 0.43. So our infection rate within the county is very low. Total hospitalizations have gone way, way down. And you can see here at the peak of the crisis at the end of March and April, we were over 18,000, 19,000 hospitalizations at that point. So that really is quite the remarkable accomplishment, and it's really a tribute to the public health practices of the people of the state of New York. So let's go to the next slide. So Cornell Medical also documented what are the best practices when going back to school, and this was based upon operations in schools throughout the world who have gone back. So limiting the number of people who come together. And so that would be limiting passengers on school buses. And we are doing that. We are enforcing 1 a seat or 2 a seat when they're siblings at no more than 50% capacity on the bus. We are reconfiguring the physical environment of our schools. So Children are limited to tops of 15 in a classroom, depending on the classroom size. Desks are 6 feet apart. Students will eat lunch at the desk or certainly not clustered in a cafeteria. Students will, we have closed our locker rooms, and if we are in a gym space, it will be at the appropriate spacing of 12 feet or more. And for activities, we are using the outdoors and the good weather as much as possible. So we have also eliminated, implemented schedule changes. And our schedule changes are there to promote physical distancing. So, you know, we've changed the schedules of our elementary. We've changed the location of our elementary program to have K-3 within their buildings, 4-6 at the junior high school, and 7-12 on alternate days and alternate times at the high school. Mask wearing, we have encouraged that as well. So again, these are the best practices that have been documented by Cornell Medical. We are mandating mask wearing. We will have plenty of cleaning materials, alcohol-based wipes, hand sanitizer. We will be enforcing periodic hand washing. We are cleaning and disinfecting our facilities at least once daily, and in the case of the high school, where we have 2 groups of students in, twice daily. And periodically throughout the day, high touch areas will be cleansed with, you know, again, focus on door handles, light switches, and other heavily touched areas. We've worked with an engineering company to increase ventilation. We have a grant from NYSERDA to bring in MERV 13 filters. And we are collaborating all the time with Albany County to make available widespread testing and also make available some of the latest techniques in testing. Albany County is very much on the forefront with that, and they are cooperating and collaborating with the New York State Department of Health. So again, these are the best practices documented by Cornell Medical, and these best practices have been incorporated into our safety plan. So the next slide talks about where are the success stories. And again, in Science Magazine, you know, you go back to June, 20 countries had opened schools by the early part of that month. In Denmark, in spite of opening schools, case numbers continued to decline. And that was after opening on the 15th of April. And in addition to that, middle and high schools opened later in May. Netherlands, cases stayed flat and then dropped actually after elementary schools opened part-time on May 11th and high schools opened on the 2nd of June. And Finland, Belgium, and Austria, again, they found no evidence of increased spread after schools have reopened. So I think some of you might think, well, what about the statistics here that show an increase in cases after schools have reopened? And I think part of the problem there is in the United States, schools have reopened in areas where the infection rate has been rather high. For example, Florida and Georgia and states such as that. So again, what are the practices? What are the practices that knit success together? And if you take a look at it, essentially it's social distancing. Okay, so a commitment to social distancing within the school, a commitment to mask wearing within the school, a commitment to hand hygiene, frequent washing within the school, and enhanced cleaning and disinfecting protocols within the school. But I think it's just not the responsibility of the school to implement these practices. And I think, you know, we've seen examples here of colleges who have opened up and then been forced to shut back down into remote circumstances because unfortunately students did not adhere to the top 3 practices, especially when it came to social distancing and especially when it came to mask wearing. So we really do mean it, and we really are asking everybody to enter into a social contract, a social compact with one another, so that, you know, when we are in the community and we're out, you know, we are exhibiting these practices within the, that we are working to follow within the school, so that we can contain and control the spread of COVID-19 in our schools and keep our schools open and functioning. So let's go to the next slide, please. So health and safety. So when we take a look at health and safety, I will now turn it over to our COVID-19 safety coordinator, and that's Ms. Jenna Bongermino. And Ms. Bongermino, would you like to talk about cleaning protocols?
Thank you, Mr. Corr. I'd be happy to. Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Bongermino. I'm the Director of Human Resources here at North Colony and also the COVID coordinator. And we all know that having robust cleaning protocols will be the front line in keeping our staff and our students safe. So we've been working very diligently with our Director of Custodial Services, Mr. Mark Wiegert, to ensure that we have established safety, cleaning and disinfecting protocols and schedules in place at all of our schools. And these meet both the CDC and the Department of Health guidance for classrooms, common spaces, and for transportation as well. We have been training our custodial staff on proper cleaning and disinfecting techniques and putting them on a schedule so that they know what rooms need to be cleaned and sanitized every day, which are obviously all rooms, some more than once. And certainly common areas will be cleaned and sanitized throughout the day, including obviously the bathrooms as well. Each of the lead custodians will be maintaining a cleaning and sanitation log so that we know when rooms have been done and when they need to be done again. And again, we want to empower our employees to ensure that they feel comfortable. So there will be disposable wipes and approved cleaners throughout the facility and in classrooms so that they can use those to clean their surfaces if they feel that that's necessary, in addition to what the custodians are doing.
Thank you, Ms. Bongermino. And so just comment on ventilation, and this is an important area to be addressed. So per state education department law, we're required to supply outside air at all times in accordance with current standards for industry standards for air conditioning, heating, and ventilation. And so we have been working at that, and the current requirement is a 10% outside air percentage. But we have energy recovery units on our roof, so an individual cannot see the air exchange that is going on in the room. But through the work of our facilities department, we have increased the outside air percentage to 20%. In addition to that, we will be keeping, in the good weather, particularly during September and October, we will be keeping windows open. We will increase ventilation. That way, doors will be open. So we will increase the amount of ventilation and fresh air flowing within the building. We've been working with an engineering firm, Conjo Engineers, and this has been supported by a New York State Energy Research and Development Authority grant. And we are focusing on what do we need to do to make quality improvements, indoor air quality improvements during the time of COVID-19. This analysis will be completed later in the month, and we will be installing MERV 13 filters. They have been ordered. They are now expected to be in district at the end of September. And the MERV 13 filters are recommended to combat COVID-19 virus transmission. But as you can see, we have already done a number of things here to improve air circulation within the building. So let's go to the next slide, and that will be for Ms. Bongermino.
Thank you, Mr. Core. So, as Mr. Core said earlier, part of this is all entering into the social contract where we all have to do our part to ensure that we keep each other safe, keep our students safe. So, one of the things that we are implementing is daily health checks and screenings for both staff and students. So, each staff member and student will be required to have their temperature checked at home prior to coming to school, and then also do a daily attestation, which is answering a series of questions about not only their general health, how they're feeling, but if they've been exposed to anyone with COVID or if they've traveled to one of the states that have been restricted. By using this app that we will be launching soon, the district will be able to gather that information from both staff and students to determine whether or not anyone entering that or feeling that they're coming to the building will have a fever of 100.0 or higher. If they have a temperature in that range, then they are required to stay home. If a student does come to school without completing the attestation, if the parents forget, which probably will happen, and that's okay, they will just need to go to the nurse's office to have their temperature checked prior to being let into their classroom. And then again, if the student during the day or at that time has a fever of 100.0 or higher, they will be put into a dedicated room where then the parents will be called and the student will be there until the parents can come and pick them up. The staff, again, will be required to complete this attestation before coming into work. And again, if they forget as well, they will have to do it upon entering into the main lobby of the building. So it'd be good. And then regarding the PPE that we've purchased, we've been very aggressive with the purchasing of PPE. We know that that's going to be extremely important to keep our students and our staff safe. So currently, we've purchased and ordered a lot of masks. So we've ordered them for children. So students should be bringing their own mask in, but we understand that sometimes they will get dirty or soiled or they'll just forget. So we will have them on hand for students as well. So for the little ones, we've ordered 76,000 child masks, which are disposable. And then for staff or bigger children, we ordered 324,000 masks, and we have 8,200 in stock. We've also ordered a number of N95 masks, and these are for specialized areas like our nurses, some special ed people, teachers, custodians if they need it for certain duties. They are certainly a much better filter, but they do require a fit test. So we ordered 7,000 of those and we have 2,000 in stock as of right now. We do know that some staff will want additional protections, so we've ordered face shields for them as well that would be used in conjunction with a mask. And we have ordered 1,600 of them and have 300 in stock. Gowns, again, might be an extra layer of protection for staff depending on the work that they're doing. So we have 600 on order. We do have a few on stock as well. We've ordered a ton of gloves, so there's many and they will be available in all buildings. And then certainly we talked about the cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers, dispensers, hand sanitizing stations, wipes, paper towels, all of that will be in the buildings. And we did disable all of the air hand dryers in the bathrooms and went to a paper towel and dispenser unit, which will be safer for everyone. So we're very confident that we have the PPE that we need and it will be in every building, and anybody who needs it will get what they need. Thank you.
So going along here with health and safety too. So I think the important thing is social distancing, which is a fundamental cornerstone of safety. So we're going to make sure that that gets enforced in our classrooms and common spaces. We will have signage to remind individuals to do such. We're keeping approximately 15 students in a typical classroom space and 1 student per seat on the bus or 2 to a seat with siblings, but we're keeping buses at 50% capacity max. We are requiring face coverings for all adults and students. That is a requirement. So we will provide the training and the proper use of face coverings. We will provide mask breaks for students and staff throughout the day. It will not be a requirement for a student to remove their mask during a mask break. I have had some parents who have expressed the concern, will my student have to remove their mask? And the answer is no. But that will be an opportunity for students to go, if we can, outside and socially distance at greater than 6 feet. Now, with regards to a mask, a student with a medical exemption will be required to provide that documentation from a physician or a medical provider, or work through the Committee on Special Education and 504 process, or engage in a consult with one of our 2 school physicians, Dr. Katuno or Dr. Lee, and administration to look at the circumstance and make a determination. For students who do not have a medical exemption, students will be required to wear a mask. And to refuse to do so is a violation of our code of conduct, and we will subject the student to disciplinary protocols, procedures in that instance.
Mr. Kaur,
Yes.
I just wanted to say as a reminder, because we haven't said it for a while for our families, that face shields alone are not considered by the Department of Health to be an appropriate covering. So teachers who might be wearing face shields, they will also have on a mask, a disposable mask underneath, as per the requirements by the Department of Health. And the same would be true for students who want a face shield is not enough. It also requires a mask.
That's a good point to make. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. And so when we look at the slide, if we are notified of a COVID-19 case, so these are protocols for testing and tracing. So if we have a documented case, Ms. Bongermino will immediately contact the Albany County Department of Health. We'll share the information we have on the case, any possible contacts we have. But then Albany County Department of Health will begin its investigation and assist in the contact tracing process. They have the trained contact tracers. We will collaborate fully with the county. They are a wonderful partner in this, and we'll provide them with, our knowledge of all those who are in close contact with the individual. And close contact is defined as a minimum of within 6 feet of contact for 15 minutes. And that would be an individual who would be identified for contact tracing. At that point, the county contact tracers will get in touch with all the identified contacts. They would advise them of the COVID testing requirements as well as quarantining requirements, and they would arrange, hopefully, for expedited testing over, in the one instance that we had during our extended year summer school, that was at SUNY Albany, and that was at the state lab over there, which has capacity to process a lot of tests. On its part, the district will notify our school community that we do have a positive COVID-19 case. We will give the date, we will give the location, and of course, we will protect the privacy and the identity of the individual, as we must do by law. If we're talking about closing a building, or on a greater extent, closing the district, that will be made upon recommendation and consultation with the Albany County Department of Health. And tomorrow, and I was fortunate to be able to organize this, we have all the public school superintendents within Albany County, and we have also added all the private schools, the parochial schools, and the charter schools within Albany County to be on a conference call with Dr. Whalen, and Dr. Whalen will review, revise, analyze, provide us with any new updates from the state regarding testing and tracing protocols. So we are looking forward to our session with Dr. Whalen, who is extremely knowledgeable and an excellent public health professional. So essentially, these are the protocols that we are using. Any individuals contacted by the County Department of Health, that is Albany County Department of Health, for COVID-19 testing will be required to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's any identified direct contact. And that holds true and continues to hold true even if the COVID-19 test comes back negative. If the individual has no symptoms, is asymptomatic, but then chooses to get a test on their own. So in other words, this is an individual who has not been identified as a direct contact. They do not have to quarantine while awaiting results. So the individual may be concerned, may be anxious, but not identified as a direct contact. That individual may choose to get a test. That individual is not required or directed to quarantine. Individuals who are symptomatic and who get a test do need to quarantine until those test results come back. And any clarification that we get on these protocols or any changes that we get, we will post on our website. We will communicate them to our public. And as I stated in the beginning, we intend to have a PAC meeting next week, August 27. It will be, again, open to the public with new information and any additional information that we have that would help our community get a better understanding of the conditions that students will encounter and families will encounter in the return to school. Now, any individual, a student or an employee who tests positive must quarantine until released from the New York State Department of Health. So that's the process and the procedure there. So it requires us to establish a good relationship with our county Department of Health, who has that close relationship with the New York State Department of Health. And we feel we have an excellent relationship with Albany County. So you will see this posted several times throughout the presentation, but the first day of school is Monday, September 14. The reason being is that we want to provide our staff with the ample opportunity to do professional development, to get ready. We have some individuals moving out of their elementary schools into the middle school, and we have other middle school or junior high faculty moving into the high school. So we need to provide them with the time to do that. So first day of school is Monday, September 14. And now we will go into the various school schedules, and I will turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Kathleen Skeels.
Thank you, Mr. Kaur. So our school schedules are a little bit different than what we're used to, but we still have the idea of the early school and the late school. So for our elementary, for this year, our early schools will be Forts Ferry and Southgate. Forts Ferry has K through 3 students, and Southgate has K through 3 students going to their home buildings. The school day will start about 8:45 and end at 2:15. The bus drop-off begins at 8:30. The students in grades 4 through 6 from Forts Ferry and Southgate, they will be housed at the junior high school, and they will be going from 9 in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, with the bus drop-off happening at the junior high school around 8:45 in the morning. The other 4 schools, Blue Creek, Bout Hills, Latham Ridge, and Loudonville, will be considered our late schools. Our K through 3 students will be in their home buildings from 9:45 to 3:15. In a similar fashion, bus drop-off will start about 9:30 in order to start school at 9:45. Grades 4 through 6 will be going from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Again, similarly, starting at about 9:45. And remember that grades 4 through 6 students are housed in our junior high school building. Each building principal will be having meetings, and they will be explaining to you the arrival and the pickup procedures, because they are slightly different for each building depending on traffic flow. So that will be coming in building specific meetings in the future. Shaker Junior High School students who are in grades 7 through 8, they will be housed at the high school. So their in-school portion of the day will be from 7:30 to 11 in the high school building. Then they'll have travel time to get home, get lunch, and then they will have virtual classes in the afternoon from 12:40 until 2:35. Our high school students from grades 9 through 12 will be going to school opposite their peers in grades 7 and 8. So they will have virtual school in the morning from 8:30 to 10:45. And then again, they'll have travel time, and they will be in school in person at Shaker High School from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Puccioni, who will discuss the K through 3 students who will be at their home schools for their elementary.
Thanks, Ms. Skeels. So I'm going to cover some general information related to the reopening and the kindergarten through 3rd grade campuses. And I just want to reiterate what Ms. Skeels said. The building principals will be holding a series of forums. The first one will be next Wednesday at 7 p.m. on the 26th. And then a second parent forum on Wednesday, September 2nd, again at 7 p.m. And so you'll be getting an email, or may have already gotten an email from your building principal with an invitation and information about those meetings. The meetings will be focused on mainly K-3, but all parents K through 6 from each building will be invited because there will be some information shared for everyone. So as we know, the students in kindergarten through 3 will be in their home buildings, and Ms. Skeels went over the early schools, Forts Ferry and Southgate, and the late schools, Blue Creek, Bout Hills, Latham Ridge, and Loudonville. All students will have all their special area classes, so they'll still have art, library, music, and PE. I believe more information will be forthcoming, but CYC will be operating, hosting before and after options in all of the buildings. And then just to repeat what Mr. Kaur said, the first day of school for K-3 will be Monday, September 4th. You can move to the next slide, please. Mr. Kaur talked about best practices, and one of those is creating physical distance and creating, mitigating the mingling of individuals. And so we have decided to create cohorts of students. And so this cohorting is describing the smaller groups of students who will share the same class. So class sizes will look smaller. Instead of being 22 to 30 students, it might be 12 students, 13 students, up to 15. And then throughout the day, students will be with that same group of peers, their same cohort throughout the day. Their specials teachers, they will not travel to the art room, to the library. Specials teachers will travel to the classroom to work with the cohort. Lunch will be in the classroom. So again, we do not have to travel to a common area. Students will have their mask breaks with their cohort, and all recess activities, again, will be with the same cohort. So we're reducing the amount of contact between individuals across the building. Next slide, please. PPE, again, we're encouraging everyone to purchase and come to school with the mask. I know I've seen more and more ads about different types of masks that appeal to kids. You can get one if it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just like we send sometimes extra clothes or a change of clothes for our youngest students, I would recommend sending an extra mask, maybe in a Ziploc bag in their backpack. If a student does lose their mask or becomes dirty or soiled, we will have extra masks on hand at the school and on the bus. And just again, to reiterate, we're mandating the students have masks. However, we're also going to have them social distance. So we're trying to be very careful to make sure student health and safety is at the forefront of what we're doing. Next slide, please. The facilities team, the custodial team have been great this summer. They've been working with the building principals to outfit rooms and buildings. So thank you to Mr. Kraft and Mr. Wiegert. Student desks will be spaced 6 feet apart. We're adding new signs to help direct traffic to make sure that as students are moving through the building, which again, the movement through the building will be limited, but as we are moving through the building, it's in an organized way and we're maintaining a physical distance, maybe one way down the hallway on one side, one way down the hallway on the other side. And then we're all looking at different ways to reduce the density of students at certain times, like arrival and dismissal. So the arrival and dismissal details are different at each building because each of our physical spaces are unique. So we will, in the follow-up parent meetings, share more details about arrival and dismissal. And it'll be really important that all of our stakeholders follow those directions, follow those procedures, even though they might be slightly different than in the past, to ensure safety for all, a smooth flow. And I think if I'm a parent and I'm asking what should I expect is different at arrival and dismissal, we might have a staggered, depending on the building, a staggered arrival and dismissal where buses may drop, and then we have 15 minutes for buses to drop and then ask cars to come instead of at 9:30 at 9:45. We're looking at having multiple supervised entry points. So kindergarten students might enter at Bout Hills in the front of the building. Second graders might enter at a side entrance. So each building will be slightly different, but it will look different in the morning. And one question I've gotten a lot from parents is, how can I get if I have a child in first grade, but also a fourth grader, how can I get my child to the elementary campus and then over to the Shaker Junior at the same time? So we are working with Mr. Chamberlain at the junior high to make sure we coordinate and that parents are able to drop their children off on time at both settings. As we get more information, more numbers about our in-person, who's riding buses, we'll be able to come up with those detailed plans and share those out with families. Next slide, please. Talking a little bit about hygiene. This is something, again, at the elementary level with our kindergartners, our first graders, all our elementary students, we're constantly teaching about hygiene. So we're looking at just increasing the frequency of those lessons and also asking that parents, as we get ready to have our students return, this is a place where you can really help us too, going over proper hand washing techniques and the fact that students are going to have to wash their hands before and after snack, before and after lunch, before and after PE, or before and after any outdoor activity. Automatic hand sanitizer dispensers are installed in each classroom. Teachers will schedule mask and movement breaks throughout the day. Mask breaks will, weather permitting, be outside. And as Mr. Kaur said, students will be physically distanced. All of the breaks, again, are going to be unique to the schedule and the school. So principals in the home building meetings will be able to have more information about what they will look like and when they will occur during the day. Next slide, please. We talked about arrival and dismissal, or I talked about arrival and dismissal, but I want to make sure I reiterate it because those are really important times of the day. We want to make sure it's coordinated, it's safe, because we have students exiting vehicles, students entering vehicles. So the procedures for student arrival and dismissal, again, will differ based on the layout and the traffic patterns that are unique to each school. The principals will be defining our specific entrance and exit options. And again, all of those will be supervised by staff. Arrival times and dismissal times may be staggered. And we're going to use other strategies to try to reduce students and adults from clustering. I said this prior, but we are going to coordinate with the junior high to make sure that families who are dropping kids at multiple locations have ample time to do that, and that it is achievable, and that you're not worried, you're not rushing too much. Next slide, please. Breakfast, lunch, and snack. Many, if not all the rooms at schools were already tree nut and peanut free. And our change this year with students not only eating snack, but now eating their lunch in the classrooms, all of the classrooms will be need to be free of any products with tree nuts or peanuts, because again, we need to keep all our kids safe, and we do have students with allergies that cannot be exposed to tree nuts or peanuts. Meals will be served and eaten in the classrooms. Students will be supervised. Breakfast will be available at school. Our lunch period is increasing a little bit to 30 minutes, again, to give students enough time. Meal purchases and payments will be contact free. And I've had a lot of parents reach out to me and ask, if I had money on my account when we left school, is it still there? Yes, it is still there. And then snack time, again, will be determined by teachers, and each building and all schedules will be slightly different. Next slide, please. I've said this a lot, but again, with bathrooms, procedures are unique to each building. So principals will talk about that more in the meetings. But the real focus is on frequency of cleaning and procedures to, again, mitigate that contact with too many individuals. So instead of maybe sending a group down to use the bathroom, it might be one student, and the custodians are working on the schedule to make sure the bathrooms are sanitized throughout the day and safe for students. Next slide, please. We wanted to provide just a sample of what a schedule might look like. So again, this is a sample. It's not exactly what the schedule will look like at Loudonville or Latham Ridge or even Bout Hills. But a sample schedule for our K-3 students might look like a community building or a morning meeting, some type of connection at the beginning of the day where students are focused on relationships, connections with their teacher, connections with each other. We know that students have been out of school for 6 months, so we really want to focus on this aspect of socialization and creating a classroom community. It also provides a little bit of a buffer in case dismissal runs, or in case arrival runs a little bit long. All the content areas will be scheduled in: language arts, reading and writing, math, social studies, science. All principals are dedicated to keeping an intervention and enrichment block. And again, as I mentioned before, specials will continue. So students will still have art, PE, music, and library. Dismissal, you see it starts a little bit earlier, a pack up and a dismissal. I know for Bout Hills, I'm taking a very conservative approach and scheduling a longer time for dismissal to, again, make sure that everyone's safe, everyone's accounted for. And then as we continue to refine arrival and dismissal, those times might shrink so we have more time for instruction. But as we start, and your principals will talk to you about specifics for each building, that arrival window and that dismissal window might be a little bit longer until everyone gets into sort of the groove about how it works. And that's it for K-3. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Core.
Thank you, Mr. Piccioni. And so now we are looking at our 4-6 program. Our 4-6 program will attend school at junior high school. So I believe, Mr. Chamberlain, you are available. So I would like to pass it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. This is our third night of this, so I hope most of you had a chance to see it. And we don't have a ton of new information, but it's important that we have multiple opportunities because not everyone's available at the same time. So we're going to talk about 4 through 6, which is an extension of our elementary schools. For this year, it's going to be housed at the junior high school. And that's really how we're going to be looking at it, as an extension of elementary school. We're looking to keep the same colors for our students. We're looking to extend what happens at elementary school at the junior high school. So with that, obviously classes will be at the junior high school, and the building is divided strictly into 6 different areas where the elementary schools will be housed. We'll be using our elementary school colors with tape to divide things to make it very clear what zone is what. As Ms. Skills referenced earlier, the building's going to operate on 2 different schedules. with Fortsbury and Southgate being what we would traditionally call our early schools. And Blue Creek, Bout Hills, Latham Ridge, and Loudonville would be the later schools. So with those staggered schedules, it will make arrival and dismissal a little easier, but they're still going to be challenging. We're going to need a lot of support from all of the families with some detailed plans to make that all feasible in a reasonable amount of time. So students will have special area classes, similar but a little different to what's going to be going on in the K-3 buildings. They will have once every 6-day cycle. There will be one art class for 30 minutes, one library class for 30 minutes, one music, 2 physical education classes, and 1 enrichment class that's going to be taught by our family and consumer science and technology teachers. We're still working with CYC because they will have before and aftercare options for our 4th through 6th graders. And as noted multiple times, we'll have our first day of school be Monday, September 14th. Next slide, please. So here's the example of a schedule. So note that this is the order of this in the middle of it. Obviously, the drop-offs and the pickups would be the same, but the order in the middle in terms of the blocks of what would be going on for your child is different based on which class, because the way the special areas classes go, things need to be in different spots. But so if you, as you can see on the left, you have Southgate and Fitzferry schedule that starts with a parent drop-off at 8:30. And then, as Ms. Skeels explained, the buses and the parents, the idea is that you're going in opposite directions, so we're not all in the same place at the elementary schools and the junior high at the same time to ease congestion and make things flow more smoothly. Then we have a home base period. Students will have an opportunity to have breakfast in the classroom during that home base period right after drop-off. And then we get into our day where I said, this is just an example. It will be in these items will be in different locations depending on the student and the class and the grade. So you have an hour for English language arts. There may be a break. There's a half-hour specials block. Then you have lunch in the classroom. Now, as we look at this, please know that all of our students will be in cohorts. They will be in, most of the cohorts are 15. There are a few spaces that are larger spaces where the cohorts would be up to 30. Notice that these students will be in these groups all day. The teachers are the ones that are moving, as well as the special area teachers. Most of our 4th grade will be self-contained, where the teachers stay within those rooms to teach all of the different subject areas. But going back to this schedule, there's after lunch in the classroom, there would be a recess and a break. And at that point, students would likely leave the classroom. And there could be other breaks in different spots where students would leave the classroom. Please note that recess, we'll be doing some games. We have spaces outside. We'll be working with the physical education department to plan out those spaces and how we use them. As Mr. Core noted, we're going to try to get outside as frequently as possible for breaks, knowing that being stuck in one place for a really long time isn't really great for any of us. So we'll be doing that, but we'll be doing it in a structured and careful way to make sure we're safe. Then after that, you students at lunch, you might have social studies and science for an hour, one or the other, math, and then we have the bus dismissal and parent pickup. And you can see the schedule is staggered here. Next slide, please. So additional safety measures, many of the ones that Mr. Piccioni mentioned earlier at K3 would apply to our 4-6. In this case, students will enter and exit through the assigned door. Whether a student would have to leave midday for a doctor's appointment, they're going to leave through the assigned elementary door, whether it's the Loudonville, Bout Hills, Ridge, Blue Creek, or Forts Ferry door. Students, as I mentioned, will remain with the cohort for the entire day, with the exceptions of break and recess, where they would move from that zone with their cohort, not that they would be mixing cohorts. We'll have dedicated student restrooms in each of our zones that will be cleaned frequently. Students will not leave their zone to get lunch. I've mentioned in the last 2 meetings, there are 2 schools that connect to the lunchroom, and we're working on a way to potentially safely allow students to get up and move through a cafeteria line. But that's not, we need to make sure we can get that done in a safe way with good protocols. And we're not sure we're going to do that yet. We're going to wait and see how it all pans out as we work with our food service department. 4th grade classes will generally be placed in our science rooms. Again, we have a benefit of a beautiful new building. Our heart goes out to those students that have gone through all this and then are moving to a different location and not getting to experience the fruits of it this year, but benefit for our in our COVID situation, we have a lot of new science rooms with sinks, and we're prioritizing putting our 4th grade classes in there, knowing that our younger students are probably the ones who need the most frequent support and reminders to wash their hands. We'll also have modified emergency drills where we'll do both probably fire alarms and potentially lockdowns by school zone, so that we're not cross-contaminating as to practice an emergency, with the understanding that if it's a true emergency, if it's not announced ahead of time, you need to follow the protocol immediately. And if it's a fire alarm, you get out the nearest exit, irrespective of who you might be exiting with. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be passing out and getting you all information on a really specific and detailed pickup and drop-off plan that will be coming out in the next week and a half or so. I think I'm passing it on now to Miss Lang, who's going to talk about our 7 and 8 program over at Shaker High School. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Welcome, Ms. Lang.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dawn Lang. I'm one of the hall principals at Shaker Junior High School. Could we go to the next slide, please? Students choosing the hybrid model for grades 7 and 8 will attend in person daily at Shaker High School from 7:30 to 11 o'clock in the morning. Bus and parent drop-off will begin at 7:10. The building at the high school will be divided so that wings house the 4 individual halls from the junior high school. Students will have all classes taught through a hybrid model, with some course instruction occurring during the in-person morning session and some course instruction occurring through a virtual afternoon session consisting of live classes. Grab-and-go breakfast will be available upon student arrival, and grab-and-go lunch will be available upon student dismissal. Again, the first day of school is scheduled for Monday, September 14th. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jan Zadorian.
Thanks, Don. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Jan Zadorian, Hall Principal at Shaker Junior High School. Just to start off, a giant thanks to our entire administrative team for the cooperative effort that has taken place to put all the schedules together, but certainly the 7-8 schedule together. And a giant thanks to Don Lang and Marion Cimarelli, who've been working very closely on the schedule, the 3 of us together, and along with Mr. Chamberlain as well. So thank you. One thing we learned from last year is that teachers miss their students and students miss their teachers. And that's kind of at the heart of our schedule. It is a hybrid schedule, which allows our students to come in person, the 7th and 8th graders, every day in the AM session and then in a PM session. And we really believe this is vital to building connections, which is really at the heart of what we do. So we're excited about the schedule and the fact that we'll be able to see our students every day, again, at the high school. And what you're looking at here, it's a hybrid schedule with an AM and PM session. The bus and parent drop-off begins at 7:10 a.m. And the in-person session in the AM, the instructional day, begins at 7:30 and concludes at 11 a.m. From 11 to 12:35, there is 12:35 time for travel and lunch at home. And in the PM session, the virtual session, the instructional day begins at 12:40 and concludes at 2:35 p.m. There are blocks or periods in the AM session. You can see there's 5 blocks, 40 minutes in length. Breakfast will be available in block 1, a grab and go, and the students will eat in their classroom. That's an extended block time. Lunch will be available during the 5th block session, and again, that's a grab and go to take home, and that's an extended block as well. In the PM session, there's 4 blocks. Each period is 25 minutes in length, and the students will be scheduled for 3 of the 4 blocks or periods in that PM session. This is a cohort model, and what we have pictured here is the day in the life of one student in one particular hall. It's not the exact schedule for every student. The core subjects, ELA, English, math, science, and social studies, students are broken into cohorts in either an A or B cohort, and pictured here is an A cohort. Students within a team share the same core teachers. and students remain in one classroom for their core subjects, and teachers move among the classrooms to teach their subject. The core subjects are offered every day, either in person or virtually, either in the morning session or the PM session. We will be able to offer all the courses traditionally offered at Shaker Junior High School, with the exception of enriched courses in Social Studies 8 and in English 8. We will offer our full breadth of accelerated or high school transcript bearing courses. These include algebra, earth science, DDE, studio art, and world language for grade 8. In these particular subjects, the small group cohorts will be combined so that we can maximize space usage at the high school, and students will move to large areas or classrooms to accommodate for social distancing. For our non-core subjects, PE, music, health, world language, tech, facts, and art, the small group cohorts again are combined, no more than 30 students or fewer, and students move to large areas or classrooms to accommodate for social distancing. PE, music, and health will be offered every other day. PE for a full year and music and health for a half year. Tech, facts, and art are offered daily, tech for a half year, art and facts for 10 weeks, and world language will be offered 3 of 4 days. And lastly here, as you can see, it's a day 1, 2, 3, 4. So if Monday is a day 1, Tuesday day 2, Wednesday day 3, Thursday day 4, students do attend on Friday. We just revert to the day 1 schedule on the Friday. So students do attend all 5 days, and it's a 4-day schedule. The A cohort student here on day 1 takes English and social studies in the AM in person, and in the afternoon they take math and science, along with world language in the morning, tech, facts, or art in the morning, and then in the PM session would be music. A B cohort student, not depicted here, would take math and science in the morning session, and then they would take English and social studies in the PM session. All other course offerings would stay the same. In block 3 here, you can see block 3 is listed twice. It's just, there's a lot of information there. There are different opportunities for students to take a number of courses depending on their individual needs. They could be ranging from performing group, resource class, E&L, and we also have listed there, it's called access period. Access period is something that we are excited about because it'll give our students opportunities for our school counselors or others to come in where the students are supervised by a team teacher and provide organizational support, provide social emotional support for our counselors, and just to really check in with students and make sure that students are doing okay. Block 4 is world language is offered, as I mentioned earlier, 3 of 4 days. And there's an additional opportunity there in block 4 for either maybe potentially study time for students, E&L, or resource. So some students may have study time in the morning. And again, the afternoon session, students will be scheduled for 3 of the 4 block periods. And now we can go to the next slide, please. So transition to safety measures specific to 7 and 8. And again, we'll be housed at Shaker High School. As mentioned earlier, the parents will complete an attestation form prior to student arrival at school. The bus drop-off will take place, the bus drop-off at Shaker High School and the parent drop-off at Shaker Junior High School. And this is to help alleviate traffic congestion and also to support social distancing. Students will use 3 entrances, the G wing, the former main entrance, and the H gym, and we'll be monitoring those each of those areas, as well as monitoring students traveling from the junior high school to the high school to make sure that there's social distancing and to support our students to safely enter the building. As I said earlier, students remain with their small group cohort and core teacher move to classrooms. Again, that's for their core classes. Students there is some movement in the building, but it is certainly limited by the cohort model that we've created. And I'll now turn it over to Ms. Lang again.
Thank you, Mr. Zadorian. Can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, back up one, sorry. So I'm going to continue presenting some of the safety measures specific to 7th and 8th grades. Our small group cohorts of approximately 15 students will be combined for special area and world language classes. Students will meet in larger rooms or spaces to accommodate for social distancing. We will have signage posted in hallways indicating directional path for movement to accommodate social distancing and student safety. Adults will supervise hallway passage. Students will not be using lockers, and they will bring their belongings with them in their classrooms. Bathroom occupancy will be limited, and the access to the bathrooms will be supervised to account for social distancing purposes. We will also have hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies readily available throughout the building. And similarly to the 4-6 and the elementary, we will conduct modified safety drills to adhere to social distancing protocols. Okay, at this time, I think I'll turn it back to Mr. Kaur.
Thank you, Ms. Lang, and thank you to Mr. Zadorian for covering the grade 7 and 8 secondary program. So now I will go to my high school colleagues, starting with Mr. Murphy, our high school principal, to talk about the program in grades 9-12.
Thank you, Mr. Kaur, and I want to also just express my gratitude to our Shaker High School community, not only our parents, but our students for all their support since we've been out since March 13th. And I'm very grateful tonight to talk a little bit about our schedule, and I'll also have our administrative team from the high school describe more information. But beginning with the fact that even though we are a hybrid schedule, I'm very proud to be able to say that our students who chose their electives and their academic areas and their areas of interest at Shaker, whether they were in 8th grade or coming through the programming and with our school counselors, are going to be able to, for the most part, receive all of that instruction. And you'll hear about it tonight. It also allows for our teachers to have in contact person with our students, and that's very important. And then I think what's really better and more important to our students than what we had in March was the fact that we were going to have a schedule that meets at certain times. As you know, when we went out in March, our teachers worked very hard, but we did not have a set schedule. And I think giving our students the times and their periods will go a long ways. So you're going to hear about our hybrid model, which allows for a north and south division of our students, roughly 1,000 on each side. We've divided that based on our elementary zones. And by doing that, we are able to create a socially distant program for our students, and at the same time, allow students to come in. We're also going to be able to accommodate all of what we think is our requirements with lunch, grab and go. You're going to hear a little bit more about what we're going to do for mitigation, our extracurricular activities, which actually our students are already involved in and which our teachers are working on, as well as you're going to hear a little bit about our welcome back activities. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Spofford and Ms. Skeels. And just one last thing I want to say. I know a high school schedule to a student is so important because they want to know who their teachers are and what their courses are and when they're going to meet. And our two hall principals, Ms. Fox and Mr. Spofford, have been working so hard. But with the information that we have, it will be coming out around September 11th or 12th. It's late this year, but it's due to the fact that we're trying to reach all of our students and give them that program that they want. So I'll turn over to Mr. Spofford. Thank you.
Can we go to the next slide, please? One more. Hi, everybody. I'm Mr. Spofford. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I would like to go over the Shaker High School schedule. And I do understand there is a good amount of confusion about the schedule. So we added a slide and we're going to spend a little bit more time on this just to hopefully clear up some confusion. The first thing I would like to clear up are the north and south zones that Mr. Murphy mentioned. If you look on the right side here, it shows the breakdown of the zones. And that is not the school that you necessarily attended as an elementary student. That is the elementary school zone that you currently live in. So we have the breakdown and that makes it about 1,000 per each. So it's a pretty good breakdown. Our high school schedule times are on the left. And I think there's some confusion with what the virtual portion means. Some people, I think, were a little bit confused. Does virtual mean the students that are not coming in live at all? And then the live portion would only be the students that are coming in. That is not the case. The virtual portion in the morning is for all students in the high school. So all 2,000 students should be attending that virtual session every single morning from 8:30 to 10:45. And that would be 4 periods at 30 minutes each. The live portion is where there is a difference between the students, the 80% that will be coming in live and the 20% that have elected to be virtual only. So they will not do that afternoon portion. The students that elect to go virtual only will have another form of education during the week to bring them up to the same amount of education that our live students are getting. And we're still working on how exactly that's going to look. But just wanted to be clear that all students in the high school will be attending the virtual sessions in the morning. Those are required attendance sessions. If you look at the 8-day schedule on the bottom, that shows the breakdown of the periods. We do have 8 periods per day in the high school. I'm sorry, normally we have 7 periods a day, but this year we'll be having 8 periods a day. Day 1, we would have 8A, 5A, 6A, 7A. The A-B refers to the only reason we have A and B is because we have some classes that meet every other day, like phys ed, some support programs, a couple of the high-level labs meet every other day. So all students in the district do the 8, 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And then the students that live in the north zone will come in that afternoon of day 1 for 4 classes at 55 minutes each. So that would be their live portion of their instruction. Okay, day 2, all students again in the morning for it's a little bit more than 2 hours, I think 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then the South students come in for those same classes. So that continues all through the 8 days. So essentially every student has the virtual portion of instruction in the morning, and then the students that come in live will be coming in every other day. And what that gives them is they would have each class 1 in every 4 days. Classes like phys ed or support program classes, other classes that only meet typically every other day, they would have 1 in every 8 days. To help explain this a little bit more, I drew up a mock schedule for a student in the South zone. So here's what a schedule would look like that would go to one of our students in the South zone. The North zone won't be much different. Just that bottom portion where we have the live blocks, it would just be opposite. So basically they would come in live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday. The student in the South zone, as you can see, is slated to come in live Tuesday, Thursday, Monday. I wrote this out for the first 8 days of school. So obviously it's not day dependent. So it's not like the South students always do Tuesday, Thursday. It's just every other day. So if you look at the first day of school, it would start at 8:30. I did assign classes to these periods to make it a little bit easier. So that student would have math, their period 8 class is math, then English, social studies, and then business. Those classes are all everyday classes. Okay, so what that means is the next day, so it says period 8A on Monday. The first period on Tuesday is 8B. They still have math. All right, still have English, still have social, still have business. The afternoon of Tuesday, the 15th, the South group comes in and they have their 1, 2, 3, 4. Now there's one difference that I would like to point out with the afternoon here. In that PE is the only class on this student schedule that is an every other day type class. So that student would only have PE on 1A. So if you look at the next day, Wednesday the 16th, which is day 3, that student has PE virtually in the morning because it's 1A. And then obviously the art, science, and music are everyday courses. The next day, Thursday the 17th, it is 1B. So that student would not have PE. So to compare an everyday class to an every other day class, math, this student has math virtually Monday, Tuesday, and then they have it live on Thursday, and then they have it virtually again Friday and Monday. So you can see the frequency of those classes. PE, that student has it live on Tuesday, and then they have it virtually on Wednesday, and then they do not have PE again until the next Tuesday, which would be virtual. So there's a lot more separation for those every other day classes than there would be for the everyday classes. But I think if you look on the left, the virtual block and the live block, just to reiterate, the virtual block is students, all students in the district every single day are responsible for attending those classes. The live block is where it depends if you're a live student or a virtual only student. And then it also depends for the students that are coming in live, it depends if you're in the North Zone or the South Zone. So I hope that explains it a little bit better for everybody. And you can feel free to reach out to myself or any of my administrative colleagues in the high school if you need further explanation. Thank you very much. And I would now like to turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Fox.
Muted, so let's try this again. Hello, everybody. I'm Crystal Fox. I'm the La Follette Hall principal. I'd like to just highlight a few safety measures that are specific to students that are in 9th through 12th grade. So for the high school students, we will be using 3 entrances, both at arrival time and dismissal time. Upon arrival, students will report directly to their period 1 class. This is a bit different if you have had students go through the high school in the past. Perhaps they were going to a homeroom or they were waiting in the cafeteria. To help with the social distancing, we will have the students report directly to their period 1 class. Bathroom occupancy will be limited and supervised for social distancing purposes. To the extent possible, we'll have 1 student enter, 1 come out. So we do have a number of hall monitors as well as other adults at the high school that will be monitoring the bathroom occupancy. Another significant change, we will not be assigning lockers this school year. Our lockers, as you likely know, are very close together. So for that reason, we will be allowing students to utilize backpacks or bags to carry their school supplies. As I believe was mentioned earlier, we will be cleaning and disinfecting. The junior high school students will be occupying the high school in the morning. As they are dismissed, our custodial staff will work to do a cleaning in the hour in between prior to our high school students arriving. We plan to use physical guides such as tape on the floors or sidewalks. We'll have signage on the walls. We're going to be reminding students to keep a distance apart, as well as we'll be a little bit more directive about the routes that they take to get from one hall to the next. And we will also be encouraging them to use outdoor pathways, which is something that the high school students have done consistently anyway. But we do have courtyards, so we'll encourage that, obviously, when it's weather appropriate. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kuchar, who's going to speak to you about extracurricular activities.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Mrs. Fox. So one of the great things about the high school is the breadth of extracurricular activities that we offer all of our students at Shaker High School. They are a positive outlet for our students, a big connection. We are proud to offer over 75 clubs for our students in a variety of different activities. We have had a lot of our club advisors reach out about some hybrid and remote options that they're going to be using. And again, Mr. Murphy's been meeting with all the club advisors to determine how to best continue them. Each club is going to develop and present a plan that's in the process right now. We're in the process of reviewing some of them and approving. There may unfortunately be some clubs that just can't happen in a virtual format, and the advisors will be communicating with the students on future plans for those clubs as applicable. We are also in the process right now of talking about a virtual club fair. So as your student may be new to the high school and isn't aware of all the different clubs that we offer, we will have something in, I believe, October, where they will be able to check out all the different clubs and activities. Next slide, please. And just so you know, and I know Mr. Murphy had talked about this a little bit, one thing that is going to be different, all in-person after-school activities are canceled at the high school. All participation in clubs will take place virtually to maintain social distancing and safety protocols. We have in the past been a very open high school after school. Our kids have attended clubs, they've been to practices, they've worked out, or they've seen a teacher. It is very important this year that the students understand that once the 4 o'clock time hits, they do need to get on the bus, they need to get their ride. They won't be allowed to stay in the school this year. And then as we move into sports, per NISFA, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, right now fall sports are scheduled to begin on September 21st. There are other options. NISFA did lay out some different guidelines depending on what's going on in the state. But all that will be, again, governed and outlined by NISFA if sports are able to begin on September 21st or if they go at a later date. And again, that's all decisions regarding interscholastic sports are made by NISFA, and any updates will be communicated through the communications team through our athletics programs. I believe I'm going to Ms. Keogh right now with math. Or, oh, sorry, music. Oh, sorry, Ms. Keogh.
That's all right. I like math. We will begin talking about the music program if we could push on to the next slide. And I will give you a K-12 overview of what music will look like in the North Colony District this year. At the elementary school level in both buildings for K-6, we still will have general music classes as principals have explained. Students will have their own instruments, so individual rhythm sticks, shakers, little egg shakers that they can take home in June. That'll be all there. So no sharing of instruments, no passing around anything around the classroom. And we have the fortunate ability to use the Quaver digital platform to reinforce some of our music learning, and especially in a way that students can access on their Chromebooks. So students will have the opportunity to make musical decisions and choices and make music in a music classroom as they should. For 4th grade, students will select the band orchestra instruments this December. We push that process off in the spring, and we are looking forward to seeing all of our 4th graders. If a student is all virtual and the parent has chosen a remote-only option, the student will still be able to select an instrument and learn the instrument in 4th grade this year and begin in 4th grade. For 5th and 6th grade, our choruses are whole grade levels, as you've seen perhaps in a concert, and we have no way to bring 85 students together socially distanced at such great distance with so many children. So that is postponed for the foreseeable future. We will reevaluate in the spring because it is just far too soon to make decisions now. For band and orchestra, that should say not bad, but band and orchestra, we will start with lessons in the fall. Similarly, there are a lot of students. We have 900 plus students in band and orchestra in 4 through 6. So we don't have intentions to gather them in large groups for now in the fall, but we will start with lessons and reevaluate in the 2nd semester. In 7th and 8th grade, we will still have the general music classes. We do have plans to sanitize guitars in between use, probably not class period 1 to period 2, some arrangements like that, and we still will have units on the history of rock and roll and musicals, so still a wonderful experience for our students there. Band, chorus, and orchestra will still look similar. When the students perform as, say, a 7th grade orchestra, they don't all meet on the same day. There's an A day group, a B day group, so there still will be those arrangements. We might need to split something like orchestra into 7th grade orchestra, A day, B day. We will investigate that next week. We have plans to check that out. And we are also using some of the largest rooms in Shaker High School to be able to appropriately distance our students in these larger groups. At the high school level, band, chorus, and orchestra will be the same, as well as our entire program for Shaker High School music. All of our courses will exist. Nothing is taken away from our children K through 12 in the music program right now. In terms of course opportunities, especially at the high school, only half of our students will be in attendance. So if you think of, say, the 9-10 chorus and how huge it is at our previous concerts, we still have 2 periods of chorus during the day. So that already during the day, only half of them were meeting at a time. And now we have only the north half and then the south half. So really it's a quarter of the students meeting in any one section of chorus, and doing so in some of the largest spaces in the building will allow us to maintain appropriate and safe social distancing for us to make music in the high school building. For all levels, we are not planning any in-person performances this fall, only virtual performances as possible, depending on what's going on. And maybe you would get some videos as parents of something happening in your student's kindergarten music class, or perhaps some lesson group recital from the 6th grade. But we won't have December concerts. Past that, it's just far too soon. It's far too soon to think about spring musicals or the like. We just have to wait and see. On the next slide, I wanted to share a picture of some research that is being done. There is an international consortium of Performing Arts Association that has commissioned a massive research study on aerosols relating to performing arts and COVID-19. And preliminary results are very encouraging. So I'm very happy as a musician to know that there are ways to make music during this pandemic safely. I share this image from the research, and I added the boxes and the arrows. It is the singing APS is to do with a machine that's something about an aerosol particle spectrometer. And it measures the aerosol particles while singing. In this instance, this was a soprano, a professional soprano. You see there are 2 very high spikes. When she was singing a hymn and a pop song, there were a lot of aerosols coming from the woman singing. But slightly to the right of that is an almost imperceptible bump called singing with a mask. And it means that when you wear a surgical mask, when it fits you well on your face, you are holding back so many of the aerosols that are created during singing. So we do have many plans to keep all of our children and our teachers safe during music performance and music classes. And I will tell you that we meet or exceed every guideline from the Department of Health, New York State Education Department, NYSSMA, and all current research. And on that note, I literally and figuratively, that's not meant to be a pun, I will send it over to Mrs. Ann Mantella, our district art supervisor.
Ms. Keel, and excuse me, Ms. Manzel, I did have a question here on instructional time in grades 4 through 6. How does it compare to what it was previously?
There is a change both for music and art in 4th through 6th grade. Unfortunately, we don't have the staff to, and I know Mrs. Mansell will agree with everything I say here. We don't have the staff to supervise, to instruct children in both K-3 buildings and in 4-6 buildings and maintain our programs in 7-8 and 9-12. I wish we could just hire 3 more music teachers, 3 more art teachers this year, but of course that's something that our school district and community can't support. So we know that this means that our students will have less time in instruction in the music and art classrooms. And in the 4th through 6th grade, we recognize that. We are saddened by it, but also recognize that the students have a reduced instructional day overall. And frankly, to preserve their opportunities to continue in music and in art from secondary, into the secondary level through an entire high school career are critical to all of our students, K-12. And so we had to make some tough decisions.
And I would agree and echo what Ms. Kia was saying. The minutes of instruction, although perhaps less in a 6-day rotation than they would have all previously have been, still will allow us to have regular contact with our students. It will allow us to continue to reinforce some of the foundational skills and content and connections with the world around us through visual art and through music. So we are pleased to be able to maintain those courses, those content areas on a student's schedule and in the rotation of their time while they're in school or taking classes remotely. I can tell you too that we have a very rich website resource that the art department developed in the spring that is undergoing some updates and will serve as an additional rich resource of additional enrichment opportunities for visual art experiences should students and families look to enhance what they're receiving. At the K through 6 and the 7-8 levels, I can let you know too that we are in the midst, especially at the elementary level for K3 and for 4-6, given that we'll be pushing in, we're preparing our remote teaching stations to be able to maximize the use of classroom supplies for each student. These are typical supplies that in a classroom, a family might be asked to provide for students' use in their home-based classroom. Things like scissors, glue stick, crayons, markers, colored pencils, general school supplies. So we will look to capitalize on the use of those items within our art lessons. We will look to forego the use of smocks, and we will supplement with very individualized supplies. So we're looking to, wherever possible, minimize the use of shared supplies, have daily cleaning in place for items that we would like to see used in some type of regular basis across sections. And we're also looking to infuse disposable and single-use supply items wherever possible. We're looking to reinforce the development, as I said, of the foundational skills and content that really represent what is in our curriculum maps and our continuum of art education from a K through 12 experience that students have in school. For these younger ages, we're looking to really hone in on observational drawing skills, concepts of color theory and composition, but trying to expose them to all three aspects of art making and art in the world, two-dimensionally, three-dimensionally, and digitally. At the high school level, we are definitely pleased to be able to continue to offer the broad range of high school electives that students selected to experience this year in school through the lessons that we have at every level, but specifically at the high school level. We reinforce connections to creative careers that are possible for students to consider pursuit of when they graduate high school. We hone in on creative problem solving as we work with kids to approach any one of our lessons, and our standards really reinforce the exposure to contemporary artists and using visual art as a means for self-expression and making connections to the world around us. We have virtual exhibition opportunities both developed and planned to continue this year to replace receptions that we typically hold as becomes necessary as the year goes on. Within our region, we have a number of juried exhibition opportunities for our high school advanced level students, and those would continue to be offered likely in a virtual platform through web page development, and our staff has already gotten their feet wet with that in the spring and looks to continue along with our region colleagues in that regard. Overall, as an arching kind of theme is the maintenance and focus on what our state education department art standards involve, the artistic processes of creating art, presenting, knowing how to put information forward in the world and communicate ideas, to respond to things that other artists share and what cultures show of themselves, and allowing students to make connections to the world around them. So this independent thinking that we foster is going to continue in the same rich way that it always has. And we do have, as I mentioned, that webpage of additional resources that will help to enhance what we're able to do with students this year. I believe physical education will give you some information next.
Thank you, Ms. Manzella. So for our K-6 physical education program, we'll be meeting with the students 2 times in a 6-day rotation. our classrooms and our outdoor spaces will be our teaching stations when we are in the classroom, which it's going to be our goal to remain in the classroom as little as possible. Since we have to maintain 6 feet social distancing when we're in the classroom, it's going to consist of non-vigorous activities, and the students will be required to keep their masks on. When we do go outside, we are going to have our spaces marked. I was just meeting with our grounds crew today to begin the layout of some grids using lines out on our fields. And those grids will consist of spaces that will clearly indicate how the students can remain 12 feet or more apart. So when they are 12 feet or more apart, we can allow them to take their masks off and engage in vigorous activity. Of course, we're going to follow all of the safety protocols, meaning their masks remain on when they're traveling to and from those outdoor spaces. And we will be able to clearly indicate, especially for our youngest learners, where they can safely be, where they can safely move when their mask is removed without coming in close proximity to another student, which is maintaining 12 feet or more when we are in vigorous activity. And of course, we want you to always be aware that when your child does have phys ed that day, that you're following the weather, and that if it's dry but on the cooler side, we want them to dress appropriately, and we want them to get outside, because we know that not only is physical education important for our students from an activity standpoint, but it's going to have even more value given that we are in the classroom quite a bit and we want to get them moving. And we know that when they are moving, they're just going to be more attentive and focused when they get back to classroom instruction. Next slide, please. For our 7-12 physical education program, as mentioned earlier by our hall principals, our 7th and 8th graders will get 2 classes in a 4-day rotation, once live, once virtual. And for our 9th through 12th grade, as you saw in the grid earlier today that Mr. Spofford shared, in an 8-day rotation, they'll get 1 live class and 2 virtual classes. They will be scheduled this year a little bit differently. Instead of by electives, in the past, they're going to be scheduled together by hall. So 9th and 10th graders will have class together, and 11th and 12th graders will have class together. We're not going to have students change for class. We're going to ask that they come prepared in appropriate athletic attire. Just like we're not using our school lockers, we're going to avoid the locker rooms and the lockers that are contained inside of there as well. But of course, if students need to use the bathroom, that's not going to be an issue. We're just going to avoid those spaces that are inside the locker rooms. For 7 through 12, we'll be able to utilize the gymnasium still and outdoor spaces. So for our gymnasiums, we're going to use floor markings and cones to indicate, again, 12 feet or more for vigorous activity. And when that cannot be achieved, then we'll just shift to non-vigorous activities when we are inside. But we will allow students to take their masks off, when we can achieve that 12 feet in between students. And we will still maintain the same adaptive physical education program that we had for K-12 students as we did in the past, and following the same standards that you saw me cover in the past 2 slides. I would like to add one other thing in relation to athletics before we move on, and that is we had a district communication go out today to all of our 7th through 12th grade families, just letting them know that there was an announcement in the government's press conference yesterday that by next week, there's going to be an update as it relates to athletics across New York State. So in my communication today, I let all the families know that even though we were to open up our recheck process beginning tomorrow, that we have decided to hold off on opening that window until we see what announcement the government or the governor decides to make regarding athletics, and that we will definitely be providing a big update based on that announcement and where we will go from there.
So we are now at CTE, and
Mr. Core, I think you're muted.
I did not think I am not muted. Can everybody hear me?
Not as well, very faintly.
I
I can take this slide, Mr. Gore. I think you're having some issues with your audio. So Mr. Phillips, our CTE supervisor, is not here tonight. So I will talk about CTE, which is an important part. That's career and technical education that is offered in the junior high school and the high school. That is an umbrella which includes business education, family and consumer sciences, technology, and engineering education, excuse me. All of the courses that were in our course catalog that would have been in place if this were just a regular year and we were going back in the fall will be offered. Instruction will be both virtual and in person. So as you saw on the high school schedule and the junior high school schedule, with the hybrid model, we will be using some virtual instruction and some in-person instruction. The one big change is that our CEIP, which is an internship program where our students get to go and work with community members and learn business skills in real time and real environments, that will be virtual this year. We are very excited to have the mentors that are returning with us, but we also, since we have a big audience here tonight, we are always looking forward to adding to our CEIP program. So if you are open to working with a high school student and you are willing to be a mentor, please reach out to Mr. Core or to me, and we will be happy to give you information about how you could assist one of our students in this growing program. And in-school instruction and labs will maintain social distance with small classes. So we recognize that CTE in many cases, it is hands-on. Students are working on projects. And so these are in bigger classrooms where we can still maintain a class size of 15, have students be socially distanced, but also be able to work with their hands on their projects. And we can move to the next slide. So our last segment for tonight is about orientation and transition support for students and families. We realize that if this were a typical year, next week we would be gearing up for our newcomers picnic where we greet all our new families, including all our new kindergarten students. It's a wonderful event, and we realize that we're obviously not going to be able to have a mass gathering this year. So we are going to be using the best virtual tools we have in order to start some of these transition and support programs. So if we could go to the next slide, I'll explain some of these to you. So K through 6 community meetings, Mr. Puccioni mentioned these. They're going to be next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. So these will be online parent forums. We can start to discuss the procedures and details that are specific to buildings. We will be sending out, if you didn't get your invite today, and you may have already gotten that invite from your elementary principal, but if not, they will be coming out, and we will make sure that we are not overlapping with other programs that you might be attending that are offered by the district. Next slide, please. For those students in grades 4 through 6, we realize that they also would like a building orientation. Obviously, the junior high is a new building to people. So we will be having orientation sessions prior to the start of school on September 14th. A schedule for these sessions is being developed. And I have, if my head's been down a lot tonight during the presentation, I have been monitoring and trying to organize the questions that are coming in from our community. So one thing I want to say is, as we are getting ready for all these moves, so some 4 through 6 teachers are moving from their elementary buildings to the junior high school. Some junior high school teachers are moving to the senior high school. Right now, it's impossible for us to have some of those virtual orientation sessions because things are boxed, furniture is moving. So in these next 2 weeks, as we get those moves going, we aren't able to do those because furniture is everywhere, boxes are everywhere, but we will be scheduling those so that parents can have a sense of what the buildings look like as we get closer to the beginning of school. And Ms. Scriven, the next slide, please. For 7th and 8th graders, they have the same situation. If they, haven't been to the high school, perhaps they don't have an older sibling. So we will be doing virtual tours of the high school, and that will be posted on the district website, some information about that. That is going to be held on Tuesday, September 1st. We're also going to host a question and answer forum for grades 7 and 8 families on September 8th at 6 p.m. via Zoom, and we'll send out that invite. And then orientation programs are held during the first full week of school for our students. And this is something we've always done at the junior high. They've done a great job of not just hitting the curriculum in the first moment of school, but actually taking students around the building in small groups. So everybody will have a chance to learn the safety procedures, the building layout, and also just have some time for just some team building and getting used to what is obviously now our new normal. And this, except this time it'll be at the high school, not at the junior high school building. And next slide, please. And this is an exciting one. This is the Welcome Week 2020 for 9 through 12. Mr. Kuchar has been announcing this. I don't know if I can do it with all the vigor that he has done because he's working very closely with our student government representatives to plan this. But student government is always a big part of everything we do at the high school, and they are incredible workers who do everything to support our kids. So right now, they are planning a welcome week. And so the first bit is a virtual tour, which will be hosted by the student government representatives. That's going to be Wednesday, September 2nd at 7 p.m. And then there will be a question and answer just for students who want to learn a little bit more about the building. They want to talk about athletics with students who are athletes in our program, or music with students who are musicians in our program. So that will be Thursday, September 3rd at 1 p.m. And that same day, we'll have a question and answer forum for our parents that will be at 6 p.m. So we're trying to tailor some specific activities for both students and parents. There'll also be small group follow-up sessions for our students on Friday, September 4th at 1 o'clock. So maybe if they missed something on the meeting on the 3rd, or they thought of a new question, again, just lots of different ways to get to know students at the high school. And then I know this is going to be awesome because I've seen the programs that student government runs. They're doing Friday Fun Night or Friday Night Fun on Friday, September 4th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. There'll be trivia, there'll be games related to things people have learned from the high school, and just a good spirit building, something to look forward to. We know there's a lot of anxiety out there about this year, and our student government kids are working really hard to make this an exciting orientation for our 9th through 12 students.
Ms. Skeels.
Oh, you're back, Mr. Gore, yay.
Yeah, and I just was wondering, Mr. Piccioni, do you want to, I think you might want to reemphasize a point here. So if I have a 4th, 5th, or 6th grader and there is a building meeting, and the building meeting is at, say, Bout Hills, is that just for K3 or is that for 4, 5, and 6? Is that for all students K6?
Yeah, as a group of elementary principals, the meetings that we're going to hold the next 2 Wednesdays, we were going to invite all of our school community. So for Bout Hills, I'm going to send the invitation to all parents and families from kindergarten through 6th grade. Loudonville is going to do the same thing, Blue Creek the same thing. Some of the information we're going to give is more specific to K3 and the building, but we want to include our whole school community in those meetings. I believe Mr. Chamberlain is also going to offer a meeting specifically for all the 4 through 6 families on September 3rd. So again, if your principal has not already emailed you, you should be getting an email with the times for those elementary school meetings that are going to include all of our elementary school families, K through 6 for each site. And then Mr. Chamberlain will be reaching out with an invitation for all 4 through 6 families. So I hope that clarifies.
Okay, I think you've clarified that. And there is a question in the chat room, so I hope that's clarified as well. Thank you.
Okay, so now I would like to have the opportunity before we move to the questions to talk with everybody about remote learning. And so as we think about remote learning, we want to remember that in the spring, from March 13th forward, we were in emergency remote learning. We were in school one day, as we all remember, and then suddenly the district was closed and everybody was in remote learning. This time, there is the option for parents to select remote learning for all students, regardless of level, in grades K through 12. So if you are uncomfortable sending your child because of particular family circumstance, we certainly understand that. And so we have designed remote learning options for all of our levels. So Ms. Scriven, if you could move to the next slide for me, please. Thank you. So starting with K through 6, but it's all the way through 12th grade, you may choose a remote learning option instead of doing the in-person or the hybrid. And if you elect remote learning, you will be opting in for a semester, and that ends on January 29th, 2021. Right now, many of you are in the process of filling out the surveys. If you elect remote on the survey, you will be getting an email from us just to confirm.
Turn it down.
Oh, Mr. Deneen, you're not muted.
Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. I know you have some young ones in your house. So you will be getting an email from us to just confirm that we have it right. So I saw as I was monitoring the questions that came in, someone was wondering if there's anything else that has to be done. Once you do the survey, next week we'll be sending out confirmation emails for remote only to make sure that we have you scheduled and rostered properly. Students in remote instruction will be taught by certified North Colony elementary teachers if it's elementary, and secondary teachers if it's secondary. If you are an elementary student, you will have in your class, you will have students from all 6 elementary buildings. However, I had a conversation with a parent who gave me some really good feedback. One thing I wanted to mention is we will prioritize putting students from the same building in the same remote class. So in other words, if we have 40 students in grade 2, we're not just going to make 2 sections of 20 and just not look at it and just let the computer pick. So if in that 40 students, in that caseload of 40 students that are remote, if there are only, let's say, 3 students from Southgate, we'll put those 3 students from Southgate in the same section. But we just wanted to let you know that most likely there won't be one cohort that will simply be all the kids from the same school. And you will still have connections to your home elementary school, much in the same way that your 4-6 students will still have connections to their home buildings. We know that's important. We know you have building pride, and hopefully the whole nation comes out of this really soon. And when we're able to go back to our buildings, we want that connection. Our class sizes in remote learning will be based on pre-COVID class size guidelines. So that is a maximum of 23 students in kindergarten to a maximum of 30 in grade 6 and up. Students in remote classes will have an instructional day that is comparable to their peers who are attending in-person school. And classes will feature live instruction. So it will be different than the model we had during emergency remote learning in the spring. It's important that students get to interact with their teachers. It's important that we get to build community together. So it will look different than it did in the spring. However, there may be some special area classes. You just heard Mrs. Manzella talk about a lot of the work that her department has done. There may be some that are offered via asynchronous instruction, which just means it's recorded for on demand so that they won't always see a teacher live for some of the specials. They may see it in an on-demand kind of manner. If you are electing the remote option, you still have access to all of the services that North Colony provides. You are still a part of our district. You're just in a different environment. So if you need access to our food service, if you need access to counseling, any of those wraparound support services, those are still, of course, available to you. Next slide, please. So elementary remote learning. So this is, the point where we're trying to imagine, okay, what is a day in the life like for a student who is chosen or a student who is in remote learning, much like we did at the earlier presentation with the levels. So we talked about that the students will have live instruction, but there will be times when students are also working on activities as assigned by the teacher. So it won't be just an hour of a teacher talking to a screen. It will be some direct instruction followed by some application and some activities for students to do. And parents will be able to check on the progress of their students without having to enter the child's Google Classroom. This was a lot of the feedback we got in the spring, is particularly if you had multiple children and you were trying to jump in and check on all their websites and you had to know their login and their passwords, and that got very hard. So we've developed these new grade level websites So Mrs. Scriven, if you could click on that link for new grade level websites, that should take us to a model that we can share with our community. So this one is a model for grade 3 Bout Hills. First, I want to let you know that there are some names on the side. It says Mrs. Weir's page, Mrs. Salinetti's page, Mrs. Relier's page. Those are just sample names, so don't worry if those aren't teacher names. We just plugged in some names there. Those aren't the actual names. So the first thing that you'll see is on the page, it will list all the teachers who teach in that level. If it's an upper level like grade 5 or grade 6, it will, instead of saying the teachers' names, it will say math, ELA, social studies, so you can click on the subject. But I think the most important thing is we came up with a way to have a digital planner. We know you're very much in the habit of checking your child's planner to see what's the homework, what did my child have to complete today? So you'll see here on the screen, it says a checklist of completion, and there are boxes that say what the child had to do during the course of the day. Did they watch the 2 videos for math? Did they do the rounding activity? Did they listen to the story, Be Kind? In this way, you'll be able to log on to the website. You won't need a password, and you'll be able to see right on this homepage what the homework is for the day. If it is not 3rd grade where they have just one classroom teacher, but it's 6th grade and they have multiple teachers, you'll see the homework for all the sections. So that should make it easier for you to check without having to get into your child's Google Classroom. Mrs. Griffin, if you can click on the top one there that says Mrs. Weir's page, this will take you to a link that will show us what Mrs. Weir's classroom might look like. So if you could click on sample Google Slide Day lesson. That's it. Thank you. So one of the things we talked about was, okay, so the teacher will be teaching a little bit and then there will be activities. But what are those activities and how do I have those materials in my house? Maybe questions. If you can click on the next slide for me within this slide deck, yes. So the first slide will always show you an overview of what happens for the day. So the child will know at the beginning and kind of get to center themselves. Okay, today I'm going to do math and reading, and then maybe it's going to be a music day, or maybe it's a library day, etc. And then if you go to the next slide. So then it will tell you, okay, today we're working on rounding to the nearest 10 in math. And if this is a point where the teacher isn't teaching live, we may say, okay, now we'd like you to complete this work. So they'll go, they can watch a video, and then they'll complete a rounding slide. If your child works quickly, because maybe math is their favorite subject and they're working very quickly, there's some optional games at the bottom. If you click to the next slide. So here you'll see that basketball rounding that was listed on that opening slide that you could see as a parent. So this would be the activity sheet. When it's in the child's Google Classroom, they'll be able to do it right here. So you don't need an extra pen and paper. They'll be able to drag and drop right into that little box. We can't do that right now because we're not actually live in the classroom. This is just a demo. And then the next slide, please. So for ELA, they're going to be able to do this story called Be Kind. So if we can click again. And so here, this is a chance for them to listen to this story. So what might happen is the teacher might break the group up into 2 smaller groups. So while she is live instructing one smaller group, the other smaller group is listening to this Be Kind story. And then Julie, if you can click on the next slide. And then doing some activities related to them. So this is all about being kind. And now the child gets to think about different ways they can be kind. And again, just like the basketball slide, they'll be able to fill this in right live and submit it right to their teacher. So their teacher can check in real time to see if they're struggling or if they have it done. And then the next slide, please. Same thing with social studies, and you can click again. And you'll see here where now they're going to watch this video on contents and oceans. And then the next slide is a follow-up with some activities for them to do in much the same way. And then if you can just click through again, just so the parents can see the end, here it is. So this checklist is at the end, and it mirrors the one that you could see from the website. So this is one of the things we're always trying to do is help our children to become more independent. So they also can go through and say, okay, did I watch both the videos? Yes, I did. Did I complete the rounding sheet? Yes, I did. Did I complete my music task? Yes, I did. Did I read for 20 minutes? Yes, I did. And they can click in the box and then they submit their work. So it's a little way for them to do a self-check. And it's also a good way for you when you have a moment and you want to talk with your child about what happened during the day. Now your checklist that's on the website will allow you to have that conversation. How did the rounding go? Did you like the basketball activity? Hey, I know you read a story about being kind today. What do you think is important about being kind? So it will help you to be more able to understand what your child is doing, and you don't feel so disconnected from that work like you might have done in the spring. And Mrs. Scrivener, we're ready to go back to the original presentation slides. Thank you. Perfect. And we'll go to the next one. So this is a sample schedule of what it might look like if you are a child in K through 3. And it's a little bit different, obviously, than what's happening in person. At 9 o'clock, we're going to start with a morning meeting and community building activities. So this could be a read aloud or a question of the day or a puzzle, but just a chance to build classroom community. And you can see we're giving it 20 minutes in the morning. We really need to prioritize that. The social emotional needs for children are really important always, but now more than ever. So we're scheduling that time in intentionally. You can see that ELA is a 40-minute block. It'll be approximately 20 minutes of live instruction followed by that guided practice that I just showed you on the slide deck. Sometimes there may be substitutions. If you have a book at home, it might be you can read this or you can do a book that you have at home, but we want to make sure that it's accessible for everyone. At 10 o'clock, we'll have a special. It could be PE or it could be art. And then we'll take a break at 10:30. It's always good to stand and have a stretch break for 10 minutes. We'll come back and we'll do math in much the same way, 40 minutes with 20 minutes of live instruction, followed by guided practice. And then we'll do another special, which might be music or library. And then we'll break for lunch at 11:30. And if you can go to the next slide. And you will see that lunch goes from 11:30 to 12:20 because we really want to build in a chance for students, if it's a nice day out, to get outside or to just stretch at their house and just get away from the computer for a while. And then we'll have science or social studies in much the same way. At 1 o'clock, we'll do a brain break video with some physical movement so that they can get up and get moving around. At 1:15, this is where the teacher will decide what they think is best for that particular day. Extension activities, independent practice. It might be today we're going to do a little extra math work, or we're going to do a little extra ELA work, or maybe we're going to do something altogether different depending on the class's needs. So this just builds in some flexibility. We're going to get together again at 2 o'clock to have a closing circle activity. And that is, again, much like the morning meeting, to just check in with students. How did the day go? Make sure everybody's okay before we dismiss at 2:15. We'll go to the next schedule. 4 through 6, you'll see looks very much the same. The only difference is that we have built in longer blocks for the subjects because of the level of rigor of the curriculum, as well as we hope the stamina of our students. So now you'll see that ELA is an hour from 9:15 to 10:15. Math is an hour from 11 to 12. But we still put in the breaks. We still put in the special area subjects. At 12:30, we still do lunch and a big break. If we can go to the next slide. And you'll see it goes from 12:30 to 1:15. We'll do science and social studies, 2:15, another brain break. And then 2:25 will be a rotation period. So this could be a number of different things. So this could be, again, core learning activities, extension activities, independent practice supervised by the teacher. So it might be today we're going to do a little extra math or ELA as I described, or it could be a chance to have some world language instruction for part of the year in grade 6, or some health instruction for part of the year in grade 6. It could be a chance for a student to have a band or an orchestra lesson, or some enrichment activities. So this period will vary and it will change each day, but at the beginning of each day, like you saw on that slide deck, we'll have an orientation to this is what you can expect for today. And then at 3 o'clock, we'll have our dismissal time. And the next slide, please. 7th and 8th grade remote learning is the same thing. It will be certified North Colony teachers. They will be in remote classes with students from all of the junior high schools. So it may not just be one hall represented. It may be an English class with kids from several halls, depending on the number of students who choose to promote. It will align with district guidelines, so it'll be 25 to 30 students. Students will follow the same schedule as their peers who are participating in the hybrid model. This is a big question for both 7th and 8th grade and 9th through 12th grade. The reason for that is this: we will have some teachers who will be instructing remotely, and they will be instructing remotely from a remote location. However, depending on the need, and so that we can offer the greatest array of courses possible, there may be some teachers who are in-person teachers who get scheduled a remote period. So they may have a period 2 class where they go to their classroom, but actually instead of seeing kids in front of them, they're actually going to go and teach the remote students. Because of that, and we can't have overlap. So because of that, we have to have the remote schedule match the hybrid schedule for both 7th and 8th grade and 9th through 12th grade. Otherwise, it would end up that your child could potentially get scheduled for a live period 2, but their teacher is over here teaching someone else. So it's the only way that we can mix remote instruction with some of our live teachers. Again, we may have to offer some classes via asynchronous, which is the recorded session, but the majority of our classes will feature live instruction. It's just one of the models that we are looking at with asynchronous to try to provide as many options for our students as possible. And if we go through 9 through 12, you'll see on the next slide that it looks incredibly similar. Same thing. They will follow the same schedules as their peers for the exact same reason. Because there are some teachers who will be teaching from school as well as teaching from home, we have to have the same schedule. Live for the majority of classes, as I just said. And one of the things we have to be very clear about is all of our elective classes may not necessarily be able to be offered in remote learning. We are trying and we are working really hard, but as someone said earlier, we have a number of teachers, and it's a specific number of teachers, and we have a specific number of sections. So our typical scheduling process would be what happened in the spring when you all filled out as a family, okay, these are the courses I want my child to take next year. And those all get inputted. And then our supervisors look and they say, okay, I have this many students who are taking 11th grade honors English, so I have 100 students, so I'll need 4 sections of that. So those are 4 classes that get assigned to a teacher. And then I need 8 sections of 11th grade Regents level English. So those are 8 sections that get assigned to a teacher. And eventually we keep working until all of the sections have been assigned to all of the teachers we have. That is the process we go through. On occasion, even when we're in regular school, so to speak, we'll have a class that for whatever reason isn't popular some years. We don't know why. Some years last year it had 18 kids, this year only 4 kids signed up for it. If that's the case, we look at it and we say, okay, we may not be able to run this. We don't have enough sections to be able to run a class at 4 students. So we let the guidance counselors know, they contact the parents, and we provide a different option. So that's part of our regular process. The difference right now is this is all very compressed. And right now you are filling out your surveys. We are crunching that data live. We are sending it out to our building principals and our schedulers so that they can start to determine how many cohorts we'll need at the elementary level, how many students we'll have in each grade who are going remote, so we can build that. But that is part of the process that's ongoing with the electives. And we know that's frustrating because some of you have electives that you hold near and dear to your heart. However, I know my superintendent well, and Mr. Kaur is incredibly committed to trying to find answers and provide as much as humanly possible. And so we continue to work on those options, some of which may be that it is recorded learning. It's not completely figured out yet. It is honestly not perfect. And we know that that is unfortunately not the answer that you would love in this moment. If you could go to the next slide.
And so I assume everyone can hear me just fine right now. So we're going to take a look at what's next. And one of the first things that you see there on that slide is the Balancing Act. And the Balancing Act refers to the fact that we have parameters that have been defined by social distancing, which means that we have limited physical space. And as a result of that, we also have an issue here with staffing, because when we staff our building in limited physical space, we essentially, for every class, we now have 2 classes. So we have doubled our space. And so we are awaiting the final determinations here. Right now, it's pretty much staying at an 80% factor there for students coming into school, and 20% are choosing remote. So we are starting to use that as part of our calculation. We also have to include in our Balancing Act our faculty survey. And our faculty survey will determine the need for accommodations as outlined by state and federal legislation. So when that is in, and when we've gone through that process, that will also be a determining factor in shaping our program. Our parent commitment survey was shared out on Friday, August 14th. We would like our survey responses for learning options given to us by Monday, the 24th. We have already mentioned, Mr. Piccioni has mentioned building-based informational meetings and orientations at the elementary level. Mr. Chamberlain has mentioned the similar ones at the grades 7 and 8 and 4-6 level. And Mr. Murphy has also talked about orientations for 9-12. Student schedules and teacher assignments will be coming late, and we apologize for that. But most likely they will be coming the week of September 7th, just prior to the start of school. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I will pause here briefly, put the link up there again for questions to be submitted. And again, we have these posted on our website, and they are for athletics, instruction, food services, health, and PPS, facilities, IT, and transportation. These are specific sites where you can pose a specific question and have an answer. And if you have a specific question for your child or their school, please contact your building principal. Again, I'd like to emphasize elementary meetings for K-6 are 8/26, August 26th, and September 2nd. And the meeting for families in 4-6 with Mr. Chamberlain is September 3rd at 6 p.m. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
So Mr. Core, this is just principal contact information. We realize that we have people who are new to the district who are joining us just like they do every year, and they may not be familiar with who the building principals are. Normally they would get to meet them at our newcomers picnic. So we just wanted to add this, and if you are new and watching, you can take a screenshot of this just so that you know who the name of your principal, and then also their email address if you have a question that is specific to your child. And we will now have Chris Crusetti, who is from our communications team. He will be helping us to answer the questions that have been coming in all night from our community. And we are grateful to him and to Samantha Bloom, who is our other communication specialist, for maintaining our website, for maintaining our frequently asked questions, as well as helping us to organize our presentation of questions and answers tonight. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you to ask the questions, and if you can just tell us the name of the person to whom the question is asked, and we will begin to move through those questions and answers as thoughtfully as we can and as quickly as we can, because we do realize it is 9:15. We also want our community to know that everything that is answered tonight will be archived, and you will be able to see it on our website as well, as we know it is late. So I will turn it to you, Chris, for the beginning of our question and answer period.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we have tried to categorize as best we can. So we're going to start with categorized questions and then some that come in right now. So we'll start with curriculum and instruction. The first few questions are for Mr. Deneen. So will the grade level principles remain the same for both in-person instruction and remote instruction?
So the principals will really be tethered to the building. So Mr. Puccioni is on the call tonight. He'll be at Bowed Hills for the K-3 group. Bowed Hills students who are remote and are in what one would call perhaps the remote school, that wouldn't be something that he's tied to as far as the principal of that work. However, as was said earlier, we do want to maintain the connection between kids who are remote and their building. We'll look to do that. We have been talking about how do we kind of oversee that remote school. It may very well come out of my office. So we will have someone who oversees that school, if you will, and more information to come on that soon.
Great, thank you. The next question is, have there been any changes, this has been addressed briefly, but to the academic calendar with superintendent conference days?
I'm sorry, Chris, can you repeat that, please? I can't hear it.
Sure, if there were any questions or any changes to the academic calendar related to superintendent conference days throughout the year.
Well, there.
Mr. Core, I can answer that. I think you're having a hard time hearing it. So yes, so what we will be doing is instead of having a superintendent's conference day in November and March, we will be having all of our superintendent conference days at the beginning of the year. So typically the Tuesday and Wednesday after Labor Day, we take 2 conference days and our students start on Thursday. This year, because of all the movement and all the required trainings, we will be taking all 4 conference days up front in the week after Labor Day, and our school will start for students on Monday, September 14th.
Perfect. The next question relates to school supplies. Will there be separate school supply lists for remote learners? Will there be any responsibility for parents to get school supplies if they're keeping their children home?
I think our best advice right now is that school supplies are up and posted on almost all of the school web pages. If your student is a Latham Ridge student or a Loudonville student, you could use those school lists, and certainly the 6 principals have talked about them as a team. And so what we will get from a 3rd grade at Loudonville, we'll be able to use in remote as well. So feel free to follow those lists from your home elementary school. We have, I should say, we've received a lot of questions about school supplies in many emails from K to 12. You will see now, if you haven't looked on the website, almost all of our schools have their school supplies up. So please check it out. If it's not up, they will be up very shortly. That is a popular question in the district.
And Chris, if I could just say relatedly, if you are someone who is on remote instruction, we will be arranging at the beginning of the year, kind of like we did at the end of last year, a drive-by, a pickup, so that if you are going to need a math workbook or you're going to need a global history textbook, etc., we will get you all those supplies. That will be part of the work that we're doing as we're getting school up and running. So we will have a way for you to come and pick up those materials so that your child will have whatever textbooks, school books, etc., he or she may need.
Perfect. And the last question directed at Mr. Deneen is, will curriculum content from March through June in the elementary levels be reviewed before teachers begin new curriculum?
We were just talking about that today with about 70 teachers this morning. We're meeting with 180 teachers between yesterday and Monday, and that's been one of our topics. The truth is, we're going to continue to prioritize our standards like we did in the spring. And so as we come back to school, we're going to work that balance. It's the hardest part about being a teacher, frankly, is how to continue to prioritize our grade level standards while checking out and assessing our deficit areas, because we have to spend time and support kids in those areas. So we'll be doing both. It is what's hard about the job, but we're cognizant of the fact that although we did work throughout the spring, our kids haven't been in their normal school day since mid-March. And we're not starting off as though everything's been just normal and here we go 60 miles per hour. We will pay attention to the fact that we're going to have a different beginning.
Perfect. The next several questions are for Ms. Skeel. So if an individual chooses the fully remote option, do they need to do anything to inform the district other than complete the survey by the Monday deadline?
So I cheated because I got to see the questions as they were coming in. So I did try to address it, but I will say it again because it's a very important and good question. So once you choose remote on the survey, we're keeping track of that. Next week, we will be sending out confirmation emails just for the people who have chosen remote. So it will say, we have your child in grade 2 and your child in grade 4 as remote. Please confirm that this is correct, just so that we could make sure we have them rostered. But that will be all that you need to do, yes.
Perfect. Will elementary students have the same teacher for all 4 of their core subject areas?
So that will be similar to what it is when we're in school in person. So K through 3, our elementary students have one classroom teacher. And then in grades 4, 5, and 6, they start to departmentalize so that there is a teacher for math, or there is a teacher for ELA or social studies or science. So we will be using the same exact system that we had used in our previous school year. So if you were in a building where grade 5 was departmentalized, you will be departmentalized. So there is a combination, but K3 does have one teacher exclusively for their entire classroom day.
Perfect. The next one relates to quarantining and instruction. So if a student has to quarantine for 2 weeks per a directive from a county health department, but it did not occur at school, so their school would still be meeting in person, how will they keep up with their work, being that they would have to miss in-person instruction for their quarantine period?
So that's a very good question, and certainly something like that we would forecast could happen. And that is some of the work, what Mr. Janine just talked about, the professional development that we're doing with 180 teachers. We are doing a lot of work to have things be very consistent, so that if you are in 3rd grade across any building, whether that's Bout Hills to Blue Creek or Bout Hills to Blue Creek to remote, that we're prioritizing curriculum standards, we're prioritizing certain academics so that we can have a student who happens to end up home. And obviously, if they're well enough, that's obviously the parent will know if they're well enough to attend remote school. But if they are, we'll be able to link them up with a remote learning teacher. Once a parent would let us know that, we will be able to have that student get some instruction at home, of course, if they are well enough.
Will remote students and in-person students be taking the same curriculum throughout the school year?
They will. They will.
And the last question related to instruction is, will remote students be taking tests online?
So they will have assessments because they will have a full curriculum, which means they will have assessments and be graded. And it may be a quiz, it may be a test, it may be a project. But we have, depending on the grade level, and then B, at the older levels, depending on the subject, we have a variety of tools that we can use to keep those tests secure so that we can do them from an online format as well.
Okay, and then the last question right now for Ms. Skeels is eating outdoors being considered as an option to allow students to spread out more while they are not wearing their masks?
So outside is always a great option, and we want to take advantage of the nice weather for as long as we can. Hopefully we have as beautiful a fall as we had a summer. And in the buildings where we have the room and the space for that, we certainly will encourage that if it is possible. It may not be possible in all of our buildings because of the physical setup, but if we have a courtyard or if we have an area where kids can eat outside, that is a great idea and a great suggestion.
Great. The next few questions relate to health and safety, and they are for Mr. Kaur. So if a student in my child's class has a medical exemption where they cannot wear a mask, will the parents be notified?
No, we would not be notifying parents of that. I think we would be looking at, at protecting the privacy of that child. Certainly we would take all precautions to make sure that that child maintained at social distancing at greater than 6 feet. That would be simply something that we would have to do and would be required to do by that.
The next question is related to that about students who are medically exempt from wearing a face covering. Would they be placed somewhat strategically in the room, possibly near an open window for air circulation?
So I think, that is that's difficult. I would think that we will make these decisions on an individual basis and in an abundance of caution while simultaneously protecting the privacy and dignity of each and every child who comes in our building. So that would be my response to that question.
Okay. And then the last couple health and safety questions relate to recess. So how will students remain socially distanced during recess? And will those students be allowed to use playground equipment?
We believe that they would be allowed to use the playground equipment. Okay, that would be part of recess. At recess, because we are again in a socially distanced environment, we would make every effort to keep our students socially distanced, and in an abundance of caution, we would have to have them masked. Unless they were going to be 12 feet apart at all time. And I think that in a recess situation, which is entirely different from a physical education classroom, that would be impossible. So that's how we would handle that. They would be masked, they would be outside, and they hopefully would be enjoying themselves.
Great. The next couple questions are for Mr. Barden related to special education. During last night's forum, it was indicated that high school resource students will be in school daily. How will this work from a scheduling perspective with the junior high and high school student schedules?
Yeah, good question. So as you saw earlier, the 7th and 7th through 12 they are in the same building, but they're on 2 different schedules. So 7th and 8th, they are already in on a daily basis. And if you looked at the schedule last night, there is resource room built in to the schedule on a daily basis. Where that differs from the high school schedule is that the high school schedule are in 2 kind of cohorts. They are in a north cohort and a south cohort. So what we are looking to do, and we are still in the planning phase of this, is we're looking to bring either north students in the morning with the junior high students when they are in session, because high school students are coming in the afternoon, or vice versa. If it is if it is a north day, then the south students would come in. So what we're looking to do is really utilize the space in the morning. The junior high will not need all of the space in the high school. So we're looking to utilize open space and open areas to bring resource room students in on a daily basis. So if it is an afternoon where the north students are coming in, then the south resource room students will come in the morning, and they will receive their resource room students resource room period from their resource room teachers. So we're still working through that specific schedule, and we will clarify that in our next PPS meeting, but we're really looking to alternate those days to meet the needs of our students from a resource room standpoint at the high school.
Okay, and the other question for you relates very much to resource room. Will resource room and other related services take place with students within their own cohort or possibly multiple cohorts?
That is the goal. However, depending on, how many students are virtual versus in person, our goal is always to create the best groups possible for our students, both for related services and for our resource room students to group appropriately. So we will try to do that to the greatest extent possible. But there could be situations where we have students that are not part of the same cohort. So we will do our best with that. That is typically how we try to organize our resource room groups as well as our related service groups. But that will be determined based on numbers, and we will do that again to the greatest extent possible.
Okay, the next set of questions relate to the buildings and facilities. So they are for Mr. Kraft. The first question is the air system that provides fresh air to the buildings on the roof of all school buildings? They just wanted clarification if that was district-wide or specific to only certain school buildings.
The majority of the buildings, the wings that have been updated since the mid-90s, they have used this type of system. And I just want to add that when the wings that don't have it, the unit vents in each room bring in the fresh air there appropriately, and that will be increased as well.
Okay, and the other question for facilities is, under the current model proposed, is there room for all of the student population to come to school in person starting September 14th? Will all students who change from remote to in-person in the beginning of February be allowed, or could there be limitations on that due to the social distancing implementations and classroom size?
So as far as all students in the district, no, that's why they have segregated out at the high school for the AB days with 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Okay. That's it for buildings and facilities questions. The next set of questions are related to technology for Mrs. Scriven. If my child is participating in the remote option for semester 1, do we need to obtain a Chromebook from the district, or could we use a personal laptop for their daily instruction?
You do need to obtain a Chromebook from the district because our district Chromebooks have the classroom management tools that our teachers need to teach their classes, and those aren't available on your home device. You're welcome to use your home device if you want for your homework, but while they're in the live sessions of classes, they'll need one of our Chromebooks. We will have several more pickup days, so there'll be, if you didn't get one, don't have one yet, if you're a new student or you're in the younger grades, we will have more pickup days at the end of August, I believe the week of August 30th.
Okay, and then another question, this is related to the health attestation app. So after answering the questions on the app, will individuals be informed if their child should stay home or report to school?
Yes, absolutely. So if you answer yes to any of the questions, you will be instructed to have your students stay home.
Mm-hmm. Duh.
The next question is transportation related, so that's for Ms. Town. If parents choose remote learning for the first semester and then switch to in-person learning for the second semester, how would that work from a transportation perspective? Can they make a request to receive district transportation for the second half of the school year?
Hi, so I think much like the survey that we're in the process of now, that would be something that we would take a look at for the next semester, regardless, for transportation for in-class learning and all of that. So the answer would be yes, they could change their mind for the next semester.
Okay, great. And now we have just a set of a lot of additional questions that are not categorized because they've come in somewhat recently. So can the district share photos of what socially distanced classrooms will look like for students?
So we will be able to post some of those on our website. We don't, as I mentioned before, because of the movement of furniture and boxes and things, we don't have a ton of them, but we do have some set up. That's what we've been using to measure the spaces. So we can work to get some pictures, and then our communications team could certainly post some of those on our website.
Are there enough faculty members to implement the district's reopening plan as of right now?
So we do have enough faculty members, and as Mr. Kaur mentioned on the last slide, when he talked about the balancing process, that is part of the work that we're doing, and that is why, as Mr. Murphy said, schedules will be coming out later than people are used to. That is because we are doing a lot of hand alignment of who is as a student in person and who is as a student remote, and then who are the teachers who are remote, so that we can line up the remote students with the remote teachers and do all of that work. So it will be delaying our schedules, and it will be delaying, we should say, our classroom placements for our elementary teachers. So we know you look forward to that. Those will all come out after Labor Day, because this is a painstaking process so that we can put the right people in the right places.
Okay, the next couple questions are for Mr. Kaur. Some boards of education have voted down or spoken out against some reopening plans in other districts and other areas of the country, recommending a 100% virtual start. So how does the North Colony Board of Education feel about the reopening plan?
Our Board of Education is very supportive of the work that the district has done on the plan, and they are very informed. They are very much a part of this process, and are knowledgeable, supportive, and totally, I would say, behind the district plan and all the subsequent modifications that may need to be made too.
Another question for Mr. Kaur. How will the district and each school building ensure the safety of all students and employees if doors are propped open to allow more airflow?
Well, I would say this, okay, that once we have students in the building, we won't necessarily be propping doors open. And I think one of the important things to note is we certainly will have windows open, but when students are in the building, the doors will be locked. And we really do want to limit access to the building for the obvious security protocols that we have installed prior to COVID-19. But also because of COVID-19, we do want to limit the number of individuals who are in the building and being able to track who is in the building, so that if there is an incident, we can do the contact tracing and take the necessary precaution that we need.
Okay, some more general questions that we've received. What is the protocol if students have an appointment during an in-person or remote class during the school day?
Then at that point in time, they would follow the same procedures and protocols. They would notify the front office. They would come in and they would be kept in a contained, they would stay in a contained area. The student would come out, they would meet the parent or guardian who is accompanying them to that appointment, and they would go to the appointment. So that procedure and process would not be changed.
Okay, do we have guidance on the types of face coverings that are acceptable for students, such as gaiters and bandanas?
Simply stated, the New York State guidance talks about a cloth face covering being acceptable. But the district will have additional PPE, additional masks available if a student mask is not functioning, or if it's questionable in terms of its capacity to provide protection.
Can you provide a brief status update on the construction project at the junior high building, which will house our 4th through 6th graders this year?
For that, I'll defer to my colleague, Mr. Chamberlain.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's coming along pretty well. The cafeteria is going to be our last spot. There's obviously furniture that we're needing to move into spaces as they turn over. I could describe it in a whole lot of detail and probably confuse everyone really quickly, but I don't know how helpful that would be. But we have a lot of the classrooms on the north end of the building already turned over. We're getting the health suite turned over on Monday, the main office on Monday. It's really, we're waiting on the cafeteria is that last space, but we've been told at our last meeting that was this morning that we should have that completed at the end of the first week of September, which doesn't leave a lot of room, but A cafeteria is not that hard to set up. So of the spaces that are late, it's probably good that it's that one. And I wouldn't even call that late. We've known for a while that would be the last space. It's the most terrazzo. It takes a lot of the grinding, so it takes a while. So, but otherwise, I would say it's going pretty well.
Mr. Kraft, do you have anything you want to add?
Sorry there. No, I agree. It's going very well, and we're definitely going to open on time, and it's going to be a very nice building for this year.
Thank you.
Will remote students have the ability to communicate with other students using the remote learning platform to either participate in virtual group work in class and or just to socialize with other students and classmates?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Scriven on that particular question there on that, because we are obligated by privacy laws and education law to deem. Ms. Scriven, would you like to comment on that?
They will have an opportunity to collaborate in groups through breakout sessions in Zoom and just in their normal live class with their other students, but we don't have a way for them to socialize on our district laptops with one another unsupervised.
And the major concern on that, Ms. Scriven, is the fact that, that would be using our school platform and our school devices for unsupervised activity. And that is something that we are not comfortable, nor can we allow. It is not within our current acceptable use policy.
However, Mr. Corr, I just want to say, I think maybe one of the concerns in that question is the students' just ability to build community and be social with their friends. So I want to say that as part of that platform, when we talked about like at the elementary school having the classroom meetings and things like that, there will be times we realize the ability to build a classroom community is essential. So that will be supervised by the teacher, but as Ms. Scriven said, through breakout groups that are supervised by the teacher, they will have the opportunities to do those kinds of getting to know you things and tend to that sense of these are my peers in my class together and these are my classmates, my friends, as much as we can replicating that feeling that you get from being in-person school.
And Ms. Skills, I'd like to add something to that too. And I know, to that particular effort there, I know principals in various schools organize lunch groups and different activity groups with guidance counselors and the like to provide that socialization. So certainly it is extremely important. We realize that. It is the unsupervised socialization that we are uncomfortable with and really we cannot allow.
And just the last couple of questions for this evening. Will remote learners need access to a printer to complete and submit their assignments from home?
So they will not, oh, sorry, Mr. Corr.
They will not have access to a printer. I would say that what we would want them to be able to do is we would want them to be able to submit their assignments remotely, and any other evaluation that a teacher would do that did not involve printed material, certainly that would be involving interaction, direct communication, observation, and evaluation by the teacher.
Correct. So our secondary students who are used to Google Classroom know how to submit all of their work electronically, and the teachers can comment on it electronically and provide feedback. For elementary students, that slide deck that we just developed is going to be our tool so that as the student is going through like that basketball rounding sheet I showed you, instead of that being a worksheet, it's an interactive activity. The student will submit it and it will work electronically. We don't want parents to have to think that they're going to have to print out 40 pages a day or anything like that.
And then I know this has been addressed in the FAQ or elsewhere, but it came in again, so it's good to reiterate. Will assignments or grading be different for those students who choose a full remote option?
So I would say assignments may be slightly different, just like assignments might be different from this 9th grade English teacher to that 9th grade English teacher next door. They may not always give the exact same homework assignments. So in that sense, sure, they might differ a little bit, but the curriculum doesn't change and the grading policies will be the same. So the teacher will establish the grading policies and we will be going back to the traditional grading policies that you had known previously. So the elementary trimester report cards, the 7 through 12 quarterly report cards. And so in that sense, yes, the grading will be the same. Will assignments differ from teacher to teacher? Sure, just like they always do, but they'll be comparable.
Okay, and that concludes a lot of the questions that we've received tonight.
And I think, you know, there's some suggestions here that I've read tonight, and you know, it's not a bad idea when we were talking about, and you've probably done this, but you know, for some of our very youngest learners coming into school, maybe it's a great idea to start practicing wearing face coverings, you know, building up that stamina and endurance. And you know, some of our very youngest learners may already be there. It's, you know, something they're very accustomed to, but I think, you know, that could be helpful here in terms of building that endurance over the final days of school. And that is a very good idea. So it was a great night. I know it's been a long night, but I appreciate everybody's patience and hanging in there. And for those individuals who did not have questions, we'll certainly add them to the FAQ, and we will be putting them up on our website. How many participants did we have this evening? Can someone give us an indication?
I think Chris can give us that in just a moment, but I also wanted to say while Chris is looking at that number that during the course of this evening, the members of our PAC have been asking a lot of great questions in the chat. So Mrs. Scriven, can you capture the chat for us at the end of the session tonight? Because what we'll do is we'll be able to give it to communications who can break out their questions and also add it to the FAQ page. Mr. Core and I have been answering them in real time, and because it's, you know, going on 10 o'clock, we won't go through them all now, but we will post them and we will get them up there tomorrow. So you'll be able to see more of those.
Just make sure that you don't end the meeting before I have time to grab it. So
you
those
bet.
who are co-hosts, don't end the meeting. If you need to go, leave it. Just
excellent.
So I can make sure I get them all.
And in terms of a total number, we were right around the 200 mark this evening.
I see. Well, you know, it was, so if you put our totals up over just our live audiences, we're around 1,500, and we've had many thousands more who have subsequently viewed the presentation. So again, I want to thank our Parents Advisory Council. Your commitment has been phenomenal. I want to thank all our virtual viewers for their questions and for their participation. I want to thank our wonderful staff, our administrative staff, our instructional administrators, our instructional support administrators, for their terrific contributions to our plan to this evening. I want to thank Ms. Skeels for her leadership of this particular endeavor, which is incredible and sizable. And I want to thank our teachers who are continuing to get ready for a very, very challenging year, but whose hearts and souls are in the teaching and learning of our students, and that is their commitment, and we are very fortunate to have a wonderful staff here in North Colony. So
Mr. Core, I don't, we would be remiss if we didn't thank not just Ms. Scriven, but Brian and Ryan from our IT department. Without them, we would not have been able to live stream every one of these events, because Lord knows you and I don't know how to do that. So they've been on every time, and they are kind of the behind the scenes people, and we are incredibly grateful to them.
And I would also like to thank my assistant, Ms. Marion Coffey, who actually had to come down here tonight because internet was knocked out at her house. But she is the host of this and allows all our audience to come into this meeting as well. So again, many thanks to our PAC, many thanks to you all for the wonderful comments I'm reading right now, and we will continue to work at this, and we will continue to improve We are planning on another meeting next week. And so as we develop the agenda for that, certainly there will be updates that we will be able to share at this time. So we will be on this platform next week, next Thursday at 7 p.m. So again, thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the upcoming weekend. And great to see you all. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.